The following films are part of our record of community action in 2 different disadvantaged communities in Scotland. Our work in Gallatown in East Kirkcaldy and in Govan in Glasgow form part of SURF's ongoing Alliance for Action initiative. This collaborative action and learning enterprise was developed from earlier SURF research, which was supported by the Joseph Rowntree Foundation and Scottish Government. The first participative study explored the impact of the recession and responses to it in these 2 contrasting communities. The original findings were published as a Joseph Rowntree Foundation report, Reality, Resources, Resilience. The Alliance for Action builds on the individuals, networks and connections identified and fostered in and around the communities of the same case studies. We hope to further strengthen resilience and practical outcomes and use learning from that work to enhance wider policy and resource considerations, which will support continuing community regeneration in the ongoing recession. These 20 interviews were conducted in February 2014. We wanted to set an information baseline about how projects started, what contacts and resources they have, what difference their work makes, and what they hope for in the future.
Hey, hi, my name's Shuggy Hughes. I'm the Link Up project worker in the Gallatown and I've been in post since April 2012. Basically, I got involved in the bowling club. When I started in post, I went to a couple of GESTRA meetings and got introduced to 4 young lads who were basically daft on bikes. They just wanted to hell in it to fix them up, then go and break them, then fix them again, and then that sort of cycle went on. So the big problem I had was where to do it. There's one community centre in which we're in Robertson community centre that couldn't host a bike project. So it took about 6 months to get up and running, and I'd made a few tentative introductions at the bowling club to ask them if we could use the place. Eventually, just by through badgering and harassing them and turning up and asking for cups of tea and scones, they finally relented and said, okay, you can go. And the one way we got in was that they were struggling for storage. So we agreed that Link Up would build a shed and that we could share for storing resources, and also the bike tools, the bike stands and some rusty frames that we got donated. And it's just built for there.
So what's happening there now?
So we run a weekly bike co-op and also a bike club, and we've just started a ladies bike club as well. So the bike co-op runs 6 till 8 on a Wednesday night, and there's during the summer, it's chaos. It could be 30, 35 young folk, adults, women, children, bairns, everybody, dogs, cats, geese, sparrowhawks as well. We've got a couple of sparrowhawks. And they come in, we teach them cycle mechanics, they learn. Now we've got to a point 18 months later, I guess, that there's young people. The first 4 guys, they're pretty trained up and they help the young people. That's the sustainability, is how do we make this project sustainable after I either leave my post or depart this mortal coil. So yeah, it was great. We offer City and Guilds accreditation now. That's just kicking off this year. And I think we've given out about 40 bikes now to the people in the community for free. So basically, anybody can come up, whatever age. They can either bring their own bike to get fixed, punctures, anything that's wrong with it, or if they haven't got a bike, and there's quite a lot of people in this community that don't have access to a bike, they can pick a frame that's been donated, and we'll take somebody to fix it up, and then they can ride away into the sunset and get cycling. It could go anyway. The sort of trying to make that project sustainable is quite difficult, especially when you're working with predominantly young people who are the trained people in the project. There was one night where there was a utopian dream happened that they all worked with young people that came along, and it was great, and we just stood back. I mean, the mechanic, I'm a trained mechanic now actually, with our cups of tea, and it was great, and we thought, this is it. We didn't have to bother coming along. This is the sustainable dream. The next week they all brought kebabs in and went, no, we didn't want to fix any bikes with young people, So but I think it'll keep trucking along. I think it's going to keep growing. We're looking at different premises now. We've built a second shed, and even now that's too big for the bowling club. So we're really going to have to look at either some warehouse or a unit. And I think it really has got the potential to become a small social enterprise, and especially the fact that we're doing accreditation, we're doing some adult learning programmes now where adults are going through their sitting guilds in bike mechanics, and they'll be fully fledged trained bike mechanics at the end of the training. The bike park, well, so the bowling club did have 2 rinks or bowling greens when the bowling club took over on their own, and it's been a difficult process for the bowling club, but you know, they've been really struggling. So you know, the input the link-ups had, and the bike co-op and the youth club, and the added income they get, I mean, probably £3,000 to £4,000 a year and sort of rent and stuff, has kind of helped them immensely. And the second bowling green, they took over it on their own, so they rent the building and the bowling green. The second bowling green was just, you know, becoming a kind of fallow field. So we're kind of thinking, well, what could we do to sort of improve that and turn it into something that's going to, you know, have a lot better use for the community. So a couple of young guys were like, what about building a pump track, a kind of skills track for bikes? So we got some money for the local area budget to do a kind of feasibility study and bring a guy called Rick Alsop, who's a kind of famed Scottish trails builder. He came in for his first design session last week, so he's going to bring in some drawings next week and take it for there. And we're really kind of hopeful that we can get certainly the first part of the pump track built this summer, by the end of the summer.
And the funding for that is coming from?
I think we're just going to have to steal it, basically. Obviously, we've got, I mean, I think we're going to apply maybe Comic Relief, Awards for All. We're trying to convince the council and the local area budget to invest in it. And it's not a huge amount. I mean, probably 20 grand's going to cover it, so it's not a huge investment. And certainly the benefits for getting more people active and having a great place. I mean, people will travel far and wide to come to a pump track because there isn't one in Kirkcaldy and there's only 2 in Fife. So it's got a huge potential for the Gallatown to make it. I mean, it is a great place to live, great, and the park's tremendous, great place. And we just want to improve that and let kids go crazy on bikes, and adults, old people, anybody.
My name is Alan Henderson. I'm a resident of the Gallatown area of Kirkcaldy. I am Secretary of GESTRA, which is Local Tenants and Residents Association, and I am Chairperson of KERF, the Kirkcaldy East Regeneration Forum.
I'm Karen McGregor. I'm from the Gallatown in Kirkcaldy, and I used to be the Chairperson of GESTRA.
GESTRA is a Tenants and Residents Association. We're registered with Fife Council, and we get some funding from the council, just really for our sort of day-to-day requirements in terms of hall booking, etc.
And KERF?
KERF is not funded. It's a broader organisation which brings together local groups, local community groups, and the council and other organisations in the area, such as the Health Board.
And what was it set up to do?
KERF. It was set up more to look at the wider picture of the area. There's a lot of derelict buildings, there's high unemployment, a lot of social issues, a lot of antisocial behaviour, and it was to address more of them that the tenants group itself couldn't address because it was too small.
So both organisations had representation from the community, but also some officials involved as well.
Yes, I mean, GESTRA as a tenants organisation is, you know, the membership is people who live in the area, and we invite council officials and other people along to discuss matters. We invite the police and community wardens, etc. Whereas the idea with KERF was to really bring in the council within an organisation to increase the focus of attention in the area. Now, to be fair, the council had recognised that the area was an area of particular need, and they were already giving some priority to attempts to regenerate it. But instead of the council simply acting on their own, groups of officers meeting to discuss things, it was thought much better, I think on both sides, that we get together and create an organisation where officers of the council would come along and meet community members on a regular basis, discuss matters and try to kind of work things through together.
Yeah, in 2007 there was a massive consultation done that brought in community members, and they said what they would like to see in their area: better community facilities, the parents recognised that some were struggling being a parent because there's a high turnover of single parents. So from 2007, this great big plan, I think it was boats, bottles, something else. But although this plan was put in place, nothing really changed. They had done the consultation, then left it. It was never looked upon.
Yeah.
And was that when GESTRA was set up?
GESTRA.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Having worked with the council, I mean, I can recognise what happens is that you have different officials from different departments, and these departments have all got their own priorities. So they come together to discuss things about an area. Oh yes, this would be good, this would be great. And then they kind of go way back to their own departments. So, what we really wanted was someone in the council in a senior position who was able to say to the various departments, right, this is our priority, we need to work together and, let's actually achieve things in the area. I mean, you talked about that big consultation. Now, when you have consultation exercises, there's expectations arise. People think, oh yeah, something's going to happen from this. And when it doesn't, people get dispirited, they think, oh, what's the point? Yeah.
So was that what happened with GESTRA? Did you get dispirited? What's the situation now?
Frustrated, I think. Frustrated because I think the council members came in, and although we were very happy to see them there, they didn't come with a very positive attitude. For example, we had the garden scheme, and people were very keen with the garden scheme and working with the community wardens. They were based in the Gallatown, so there was feet on the ground. But they came wading in and says, you don't have insurance, so this has to stop, which was fine. But they never had an alternative, which caused so much frustration. And as a group, we couldn't get the insurance. So although we had the lawnmowers and the strimmers, they're still sitting in a flat somewhere, not getting used. And the council are still writing letters out to the community members who still haven't done their gardens. And you just think, was it really worth?
Yes.
Well, was it really worth it? I mean,
there was as many meetings where all these issues were discussed, and
people just walked away. They had enough.
Yeah.
And so, what's the situation with GESTRA now?
The situation with GESTRA at the moment is that we are in limbo, really, because at our last AGM, which was last autumn, we didn't have people who are willing to take the official posts in the organisation. So we've agreed that technically it still exists, but it's a bit in limbo, and we're hoping to kind of get together informally fairly soon to see the level of interest and to keep going. Because I think both GESTRA, we've been unable to really get deep into the community and get a lot of people involved. When it's kind of like a vicious circle, unless there are things happening, people,
it's about knocking on doors.
It's difficult to get them involved.
It's about knocking on doors and engaging with the community because they're not hard to reach. I think there's a problem with some officers. Putting up a tent is fine and getting everybody when they're passing is fine. But you really need to go knocking on the doors and saying, look, please be part of this, because people do this and tell you their whole life story. And it's just that nobody's actually reached to them. And the people that we do have coming to our meetings, they're so formal. You need a chairperson, a secretary. Now we've got a community who their reading and writing skills are not up to scratch. We've got a lot of people who are blacklisted, so we can't have a treasurer. And it's looking at how community groups are run. I mean, if people don't have the skills but they're willing just to turn up at the meetings, then we should focus on that and change the way the meetings are run to suit the needs of the community, not to suit the needs of ticking a box that you have a chair and everything. Because as long as you, in my opinion, have elected members or council officials there to see that it's being run correctly, then I can't see the problem. I mean, people are there to give their input, but they're not willing to take up a role.
Yeah, a formal role.
No.
Yeah. And, while GESTRA's in a bit of a limbo, KERF has also kind of hit this issue about community involvement. you know, it's the same issue that GESTRA has about reaching into the community and getting people involved. At the same time, there's a lot of things happening. There's various groups working away, but there's a lack of coordination.
And communication.
Yeah.
So is it fair to say that what the two groups have in common is that they haven't succeeded in getting as much community engagement as they had set out to do in the first place?
Yes, definitely.
But whose role is it to engage with the community? That's a full-time job in itself, because we're only giving up so much of our time, and at one point we were having meetings 3 or 4 times a week.
Yes, it is difficult for us. But at the same time, you know, there are big opportunities coming along. You know, the council have succeeded in securing money from central government for projects in the area. Now, you know, it would be a real shame if there was not community engagement at this level to help influence how that money is spent. If the council just decided, well, I'll spend it on X, Y, and Z, you know, that'd be fine. But much better if it's done in conjunction with the community. So KERF has got an important job over the next 18 months, couple of years, to try and influence how that money is spent and to keep pushing the council. I mean, it's a two-way thing. KERF allows the council to engage with the community, but also gives the community an opportunity to make the council more accountable.
It gives the community a voice at the end of the day. It's no, we're going to come in and do this. It's what would you like to, in your community, how would you like to go about it? And is there anything else that you want? I mean,
so you're positive that over the next year, 18 months, there will be able to be community involvement in these decisions about the funding.
Yes,
but
I think there's more. I think there is definite recognition within the council that they have to get out and engage with the community. Otherwise, you know, we won't achieve everything that we could with this opportunity.
And it's not about one agency coming in and them being the voice for the community. That's not what we want, because when that funding goes away, will that agency still be there? I would rather see members of the community who have all day and are usually bored to go to a community centre, learn some skills so that they can then take ownership of their community. That would be the best, to me, way that we focus on the community, because there's lots of aspirations. People want to do things, but they don't know how to do it. If you're, a lot of people's on the dole, a lot of people don't work, but there's only a job centre on 2 hours on a Friday morning. Now, what are people supposed to do Monday to Friday? There's a high level of drugs. Our chemist goes ding dong, everybody's on no, not everybody, but a high percentage of people on methadone. They go and they get their methadone, and then where do they go all day? Yeah. There's nowhere for them to go, there's nowhere for to change that behaviour.
I'm Anne-Marie McMeekin, I'm part of the cooking group.
And I'm Devina Kenny, I'm part of the cooking group, the craft group and the pound soup stall.
It started, it was the link up that I'd started it to start with, and now we're actually doing it ourselves. We pay £1 a week trying to sell.
Get fundraising.
Aye, we're self-sufficient. Aye.
And what happens at the cooking group?
We do all aspects of cooking. We do basic cooking, we do fancy cooking, we do what sort of cuisine cooking.
Just what we all decide, what we take a vote. If somebody suggests something and we all want to do it, then we do it.
Sausage pie,
lasagna, stir fries, steak pie,
curry. We've also made
fish pie,
meringue,
dauphinoise potatoes that I love. I cook all the time. Colin skunk, is that how you pronounce it?
Colin
skunk, yeah.
And
what do your families think about the food you're cooking now?
my kids love it. My kids love home cooking, so they can't wait till Thursday getting their dinner. They love it. But it depends.
It varies for 4 people a week up to 10, 11. It just depends what people's got on and appointments and school stuff. But it can vary every week. It can get quite busy. Well, it was link up and family support. Lorraine and Shuggy got talking, and then they asked some mums at the school if they'd like to volunteer to help out, and a couple has agreed.
So what is it you do?
We get fruit and, well, not fruit now, but normally in the summer we do fruit, and we get veg and we make up soup packs. It's everything you need for a big pot of soup, and we sell it for £1, so you can just buy your wee bag, take it home, and then it feeds like a family of 4 or 5. And it's quite popular, a lot of people like it.
You have a stand at school once a week or twice a week?
Yeah, once a week, a Wednesday afternoon. We go there about 2 and it takes us half an hour to bag it all up and get it sorted in the wee bags. And then for 2:30 to 3:30 we stand in the playground where we tables and stuff. And
how many do you sell?
30, 40 sometimes. Sometimes we're left with a couple and other times we sell out. It just depends on the people and if they fancy soup.
Is there a recipe with that?
There used to be, but everybody that buys from us now knows how to make the soup. Lentil and broccoli are most popular. Everybody loves the broccoli, it's really nice.
We're in the process of doing a cookbook now. That's for the funding for the future. We're hopefully going to do some fundraising maybe, and obviously we're paying £1 a week now to put towards our funds for in the future.
So for the next year, you think the food group will be able to keep going by itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, it should. If you watch your budget.
And are there different people coming all the time? Is it growing?
Yeah, there's new people. We've got a couple of new girls that came the last couple of weeks.
We've got lots of regulars too.
Yeah.
And people that come quite a lot. Come every week.
Yeah, I'm
I've
here
been
every week.
for nearly a year. No, I didn't feel like I'm cooking here. I feel just like I'm having fun.
Yeah, and it's a break from the kids. Because if you've got the wee one like I've got Kyle, and we've got a wee ones 24/7, but then we can go and cook knowing that they're safe in the creche. Instead of like in the house, they're all running in and out the kitchen and you're trying to prepare, where here it's all, they're separated from the kids and it's prepared separate and you go home and heat it up. So, and plus it saves us time at night and you get to play with them or do homework because the meal's already prepared. So it helps us that way.
And it's fresh.
Yeah.
I use freezer stuff the rest of the week usually. So.
I'm Kevin Robertson. I work with Fife Council with the locality support team, and my specific role is to provide a community capacity building support function.
My name's Julie Dixon. I work for Fife Council, Community Learning Development and Team Leader. I've got responsibility for youth work, adult learning and some community engagement, and specifically we're targeting the Gallatown as one of our priority areas at the moment in Kirkcaldy.
Certainly in the time I've been working in the Gallatown, there's been various attempts to engage with the community, not all of them that successful, I have to say, and I suppose that's one of the reasons that we're trying to do some new things and try some new approaches. I think in the past we've probably concentrated a lot on one particular community organisation that was there and thought we would build on that, but that wasn't an approach that worked as well as we had hoped, and I think there is the need to widen it as broadly as we can, and that's what we're trying to do now.
I think there's been a recognition that other areas have been allocated more of a resource in the past, and the evidence, the SIMD evidence and our local knowledge as well has made us realise when we've mapped the whole area that is an area of priority in a neighbourhood that we want to do more in. As Kevin says, we've tried on a number of occasions to engage with people with a variety of successes, and a lot of the time a lot of our stuff has been very activity driven. So this is an opportunity for us to build on that and really engage with people in a meaningful way to help shape what we're going to do next.
I think it's had an influence, but I don't think it's been the one driving force. I mean, I think looking at the most latest SIMD information, I think that has shown us that whatever we're doing in the Gallatown, isn't having the impact that we want to have, and the statistically things seem to be getting worse rather than better. So there is a need to concentrate resources, but that's difficult to do in the current climate. But we're trying to make effort to do that. Certainly having the new resources that are going to be coming in to look at developing community facilities, for instance, is going to be a really big boon to the Gallatown, I think, and hopefully be a real catalyst for getting people involved.
Absolutely, it would be a key priority. I once lived in the Gallatown and grew up in the Gallatown, but I have no idea in 2014 what it's like to be there now. And as Kevin says, we've got the statistical evidence, and what we're hoping to do is to find out from local people exactly what it's like to live in the Gallatown, and then get them involved in shaping how we can change things with them, rather than make some decisions in a darkened office somewhere.
I think some of the approaches that we've been kind of experimenting with recently, and we're going to try and do some more of, are things like the pop-up cafe style approach, which was basically using a couple of gazebos, obviously in the better weather, when that really works, right in the heart of the neighbourhood, so that creates a bit of curiosity and a kind of very informal approach for people just to get involved and to have conversations with people, really.
So people call in and you sit down and talk to them about what's going on?
Yeah, that's right, over coffee and so on, and it was entirely free. So we're looking to do that sort of stuff. We're looking to do some more kind of door knocking stuff. Really the bread and butter stuff that community workers used to do all the time, but more and more do less and less, actually.
Because there's less resources.
I think that's the reality, yes, but I think we need to be doing that kind of stuff where we are having cups of tea, if you like, with people, and finding out what it is that makes them tick and what makes their community tick, and what really matters.
What kind of timescale are you looking at here? Because that's a big project, trying to engage with all the people who live there.
Absolutely, and there's a couple of steps that need to happen. We're in the process. We've got a bit of an opportunity just now. We're changing the way, certainly my own team operate and work, and they're going to have a neighbourhood focus. So I'm going to be able to free a member of staff up as well to work alongside Kevin and myself. So there'll be 3 of us going out to speak to people. We're very much doing using every single element of resource that we've got. So whether it's people I went to school on Facebook, people that come to some of these activities I was referring to earlier, to try and engage people and try and reach people that we don't normally reach and who wouldn't normally pitch up to a traditional council meeting, or maybe who aren't brave enough to come and get a cup of tea at the pop-up cafe.
Are you using social media as well?
Yes, we've just set up our Kirkcaldy Facebook page, and I think it's proven to be successful up to a point. It's early days, I suppose. It's always difficult to know where people are coming from who like your page and to engage. So we're not able to say how many people from the Gallatown at the moment are involved, but we hope to develop that.
I suppose some of it will be anecdotal stories. So, that snapshot of how people feel about the community that they're living in, what the issues are, and what the assets are of the community. So what's great about living in the Gallatown? The Gallatown's always had a really strong sense of neighbourhood and neighbourhood pride, and whilst it's not without its challenges, people speak very fondly about coming or hailing from the Gallatown. So, looking to kind of build on some of that. Hoping that people will stay on board after they've spoke to us and say, yeah, we want to be part of things, and we're trying to work as a team to think of creative ways to sustain that. So, not everybody wants to come along at 7 o'clock to a meeting with an agenda, but if we pitch up at the local cafe or, the local bakers and arrange to meet somebody and touch base that way, and that's how we can sustain them, then great.
Okay, I'm Aileen Wilson. Health Improvement Nurse for Kirkcaldy and Leavenmouth area within the Improving Health team. I started this post in June, and I've been really highly involved in one of the projects, WoW Wheels. WoW Wheels was started. It was brought about by the Roving Health Points, which is where nurses go into local businesses and set up a health point where people can access and get blood pressure, weight, height, and general health information if need be. But what we found was that some people were wishing it was a wee bit more easily accessible, so we decided that we would try and go into the heart of the community, so go into the streets of the community and to make it as easy accessible as possible for the client. We started our pilot in June in the Linktown area in Kirkcaldy and Inverteal area of Kirkcaldy, which is it was very good. We've seen 190 clients from June until December, and that was covering the Gallatown area and Temple Hall area as well in Kirkcaldy. We were really lucky to get the bus from the oral promotion department of the NHS, which have kindly given us a loan for the next year, which was fantastic, free of charge I might add, which was even better. Funding has come from the local Kirkcaldy area committee, and funding's been secured for the Kirkcaldy for the next year. The stories that we've been getting back from clients will come back to us and say that the service has been great. They don't feel any pressure to look at your watch and say, oh, you know, that we're on a time management scale. Clients have successfully been referred to agencies such as smoking cessation, local drug and alcohol misuse agencies, healthy weight, GP, with their consent. It's just been remarkable. Some clients will come back and say, I've managed to reduce my alcohol intake, I've stopped smoking, I'm going to classes, and really felt that giving them a wee bit more control of their lifestyle.
And can people just turn up, or do they have to make an appointment?
People can just turn up. They don't have to make an appointment to come and see the nurse. They can, sometimes they just want to come and have a chat and see what the Well on Wheels bus is about. Other people are really desperate for some help and support. So it's quite a great mixture of age range, from teenagers right up to your grannies and granddads as well.
Are you finding it spreading by word of mouth?
Absolutely, yes. We've advertised in local businesses around the area that we've been going into, around Linktown. We work really closely with the local businesses within the area for access to toilets and things for the staff, obviously, because there's no facilities on the bus, and really depend on their working, good partnerships. We've advertised on Facebook and Twitter, through Fife Council. Lots of supports from all the other agencies that we work with, Welfare Reform, Citizen Advice. They've come out on the bus and worked with us. It's been fantastic. I think sometimes I just think it's a friendly face. I think people want to because it's easier. I think possibly at times it's the right place at the right moment.
It's less formal, maybe?
Absolutely. People don't have to stay. They don't have to come in. They're not on a time scale. They tell you the information they want to tell you, and we help as much as possible from there. They can take our advice, and it's a choice. We're not dictating them, say, well, you have to do this and you have to do that. And I think sometimes that's just quite a big difference, and just knowing that they're the important person there, that it doesn't matter if there's a queue outside or if people are waiting, that they're there you've got your undivided attention, and they know to make them feel that they're going to do as much as possible for them.
And the pilot's been so successful, what's happening now?
We will take it into, hopefully, trying to secure funding to take it into other areas, which would be really good. The feedback that we're getting from all other agencies, from councillors, has been really positive. From managers, it's been really good, and that is all word of mouth. People coming back and saying how successful the pilot has been, looking at numbers that have accessed the bus over a short period of time. So yes, it's all quite exciting.
Just briefly, just occurs to me, is it more fun for the nurses to work in this environment as well? Is it more interesting for them?
Well, I think it's interesting, yes, definitely. But I think what we are finding is from the roving health points that the nurses are used to working within the environment. It's a different client that's coming and accessing the bus, which we couldn't have. There's no way we could have known that. So there has been training issues. A lot of it through welfare reform, so we've had to address that so the nurses feel supported, and because you want to give the client the knowledge that they deserve, that it's not good enough to say, oh, I'm sorry, well I don't know, but I'll find out for you. You need to go and say, well, right, this is what we need to do. So yes, and just making sure that any issues that do come up, that we are looking at training and supporting the nurses to get past that and have the knowledge that they need.
And you're reaching a clientele that otherwise you would not be reached?
No, that's right, absolutely. We're reaching clients that aren't accessing any services at all, clients that have no support, clients that don't know what services are available to them. And it's just breaking those barriers, which is, one, as a professional, has been very exciting and very rewarding, and it's just to make sure that people can come back and people can get support that they need and they deserve, which is I think that's our job, to get out there and do it.
My name's Danny Cepok. I'm the Area Services Manager covering the Kirkcaldy area of Fife Council, which includes Kirkcaldy, Burnt Island and Kinghorn. My role is very much about developing the local community plan. Fife has 7 local community plans covering the 7 areas. I'm obviously responsible for the Kirkcaldy area local community plan. And the idea behind the local community plan is to work with communities, voluntary organisations, public, private sector, across the board, help identify priorities for the Kirkcaldy area, and that sets a marker for other services, other public service organisations around what we hope they can help deliver in the Kirkcaldy area that the community see. Creative Scotland has put up £8,000, which I believe Surf holds at the moment, as a way of trying to create, I suppose, creative and innovative projects in the Gallatown area. Fife Cultural Trust have agreed to put £5,000 into that pot, and we're going to be looking at £5,000 coming from what we call the local ward budget, giving us a total of £18,000. The concept is that we encourage local people to come up with creative ideas, creative projects, and using creative in the widest sense. So it's not just about arts type projects or performance projects, although that could be part of it, but it's really expanding on their creativity. And the way we want to then determine which projects will get selected, we'll do through a process of participatory budgeting. So don't know what that will entail exactly, but what will mean that the communities themselves will decide how the £18,000 will be spent and on what projects. And what makes participatory budgeting different from consultation is that participatory budgeting means that we're duty bound with the decision that the communities make, whereas in a consultation you're looking for ideas, you're looking for views, and you'll take them on board.
What kind of timescale are you looking at?
We're probably looking at a run-up from between spring up to summer, and hopefully around the summer period that's where we'd be really getting into looking at projects and then setting up the PB event. We've run a couple of events before in the Kirkcaldy area, covering the Kirkcaldy area, so they were quite big events, around 150 people. And one of the things we asked the people who were applying for funding, the groups applying for funding, to do was to try and present their pitch in a very kind of imaginative and creative way. And we had some really wonderful kind of ideas that came to mind. And all in various different ways. So one that really has always stuck in my mind, it was a group of primary 7 school children from Kinghorn who were really fed up with dog fouling. Had done an exercise in the sense of they went round the town and had kind of identified places where dog fouling happens most, and they were thinking about, you know, how do we really alert people to the dangers of dog fouling, how horrible it was. They ended up doing a very vivid and graphic campaign around it. But in order to do their pitch, 3 of the primary 7s did a rap and actually did it round an, I can assure you, an artificial dog fouling mess on the stage. But it really worked. It really grabbed people's attention and got their point across. And if I could tell you about another example in really stark contrast to that, and it was the Samaritans, who had no fancy pitch at all. Or, you know, it was just a chap who came up to the podium, went to the microphone and said, "Hands up, all those of you who are feeling good." And of course most of the people in the hall did that. And then he said, "How many of you don't feel so good or are feeling unhappy? Put your hand up." And one brave soul did that. And the point he made was, when you're not feeling very happy, you don't often make it public or tell people around it. And he says that's where we come in. And at that point he had the whole audience spellbound, and then delivered his pitch, and he was successful in doing it. So I think that's an example of the wide range of creative approaches you could take in terms of participatory budgeting.
I'm Margaret Allen, and I'm chair of the Gallatown Gala and Community Group. A group of us had worked with Link Up and that to do the gala 2 years back, and then last year we took over most of the running of it. We had done all the organising, arranged all the, looked at funding and things like that with our Link Up workers' help, and we decided that actually we could maybe do this ourselves. So we got together as a group and a committee, so we set up.
And there'd been a gap in the gala, there'd been a couple of years where we
That's right, before that there'd been a gap, and then we come in.
And the people on the committee, they're all local people? They're
all local people, yeah, very much so. We're the community group as well, so we've got most of us take part in the cooking group. We have started a new craft group, which has been really popular. We used to run a Monday evening in the bowling club, but a few people had said, actually, I'd like to come, but can't come out in the evening. So we made an arrangement with the Govan Community Centre, and we set up here on a Thursday afternoon. And we went up to, I think we've got about 14 people. All our funding it all comes under the one, the Gala Committee group. We applied to Kirkcaldy, the local area budget, for funding for each of our groups. And that'll go towards as well for starting the Gala this year. But we'll also be looking to do our own fundraising as well.
What kind of things are you doing? You had some events at Christmas, didn't you?
We did. We had a Christmas party for the children. I mean, this is the main thing about the gala. It's a children's gala. It's trying to bring a sense of the old community spirit back into here. And some of us remember going to the galas when we were younger, different ones, minors, our community centres, things like that. So we wanted to bring a bit of that back for the children. It was a great success last year. A bit windy, so we're hoping for better weather this year. But,
you had a good turnout?
We had a good turnout, yeah. Even for the little wind that we had. I thought it might put people off, but no.
How many people do you think came?
I'm not sure. Well, we catered for, I think it was about 200 children, and all those went.
And their families?
And their families, of course, yeah. Our main thing was we made up little bags one of our local bakers. We used Glen Bakers. We got an order for them and made up bags for the children with some eats in it, a sausage roll, a wee cake and a little juice, and we gave them away to the children in the community.
And you got a lot of volunteers as well?
Oh, lots of volunteers from everywhere. It was a fantastic day. We're looking to have the gala. At some point we're looking at maybe a ceilidh or something like that, do some fundraising. I've been talking with Annette. Our group have been talking with Annette from the Govan Community Centre, possibly of a lunch club to raise funds, and also bring back a wee cafe to the area as well. Annette was saying a lot of the elderly people around about here, they'd love to be able to come out during the day to something. So that's something that the group's looking at, is setting up a little lunch club, possibly a film night. So lots of plans.
My name is Andrew Walker. I'm an economic advisor within a town centres regeneration team, and there's two elements to our job from the title. We work on town centre projects and also regeneration projects. And one of the key elements that we've been working on for a number of years is the Gallatown area of Kirkcaldy, as one of the most deprived, according to SIMD numbers, areas in the whole of, in Fife, but also within the bottom 5% in the whole of Scotland. So over a number of years we've been working on projects, presumably with the primary school, doing some landscaping planting projects with school pupils, and working with the former locality manager in developing a neighbourhood development plan, which then formed part of neighbourhood development plans for other areas within Kirkcaldy, Linktown and also Temple Hall areas of Kirkcaldy. We started looking at the Gateway site a few years back. There was a number of issues through a number of consultations on two aspects, kind of safety and also the lack of community facilities within the area. We decided to look at the safety aspect first. There was one particular building, the County Press building, which was an old printer's, but had kind of fallen down. The roof was down. It was enclosed at the back, and there was instances of people committing antisocial behaviour. So we looked initially to look at what powers we had to do anything, and went down the powers to advance wellbeing. Approached the owners and went through the process and demolished the building and landscaped it, which created a green space, thus opening up the site, and then brought more attention to the Salvation Army Hall, which was behind it, which now kind of moving one problem into the next problem. There was a legacy of money from Scottish Enterprise, and we used that to proactively, first of all, create an audit of community facilities within the Gallatown area, because a number of consultations have highlighted the fact there was a lack of community facilities, and also to see if there was anything we could do on that Gateway site, which was on a key corridor into Kirkcaldy. We got a firm of architects from Edinburgh, Smith Scott Mullen, who produced a piece of work. We audited the number of community facilities within a radius of the site, and also provided a series of options for the Gallatown Gateway site itself. We had this piece of work there and ready, all the costings, designs and everything, and then the Regeneration Capital Grant Fund came about. So we were kind of preemptive and proactive in having a piece of work that was ready to kind of, we have all the information, we have the costings, we have the rationale, we've done through the consultation process. So we had something we could, kind of almost ready, shovel-ready piece of work to kind of submit to Scottish Government. So the initial proposal was sent in, which was just a 2-page application form. So the project contained the Gateway site itself, which is development of that, and soften the hard landscape and improvement of urban realm, refurbishment of the local office, which is as part of the community asset plan, is being kind of made redundant, to provide a facility within the area. I mean, there's been a call for a number of years for community facilities, but there hasn't been a feeling that there's a strong enough group so far to manage a community facility. So the plan was to kind of give them a space to use and see how that developed. There's a number of good activities coming out of the bowling club in Gallatown, so part of the funding money was allocated towards improving that, and also the Overton Mains Community Hall, which has been run for a number of years with a wealth of activities going out of there, but is an old hall that's kind of run down and seen the test of time kind of thing. and there's a strong committee within the Overton Community Hall which runs and manages the hall. So it's just to provide a better option for them. So we applied, we got through the first phase, and then we applied for the second phase for the money using the information we got from Smith Macmillan. And just by the end of November, we were lucky enough to find out we got 950,000 from the Regeneration Capital Grant, Scottish Government funding. So now we're at the stage of, we've again employed an architect to do some drawings, and the plan now is to take these drawings into consultation, a couple of options, and see what people actually want to happen. I mean, one of the key drivers has been the consultation, that people are actually involved and actually see things happening. So if we keep going back to the community and keep consulting the people, they've got a say in what's actually happening on the ground. So we have the drawings, we're going through speaking to people internally, transportation planning, to make sure the drawings are that they'll be okay with them. And then once we've got 2 finalised drawings, we're going to go out to the community and consult on that, and then start the process. The funding's split over 2 years. The first year we're going to look at the gateway site itself, which will make a larger statement. The rationale for the funding from the Scottish Government was that would make a discernible impact on an area, and we felt by doing the gateway site, as it's on a key corridor, it's had a reputation as being a site where there's been antisocial behaviour, and it's a bit of a blight on the community. We've got big focus on dilapidated property, so we're making a big statement by doing something the first year that we're actually doing something in the Gallatown area. And then the local office to provide facilities for local people, and there's a list as long as your arm of people that are looking to use the space already. So that's, and in the second year we'll look to refurbish the bowling club and also the Overton Mains Community Hall. And as part of the work that's been done, the YM are based out the bowling club already and doing some great work out there, so it's to improve the facilities for them, and also there's interest from Wraith Rovers Ladies Football Club to use it as changing facilities, and also to set up as a base, so they'll be developing pitches and full-size pitches so they can enhance ladies football within the area. And that's something that's also missing within the Kirkcaldy. There's a shortage of pitches. As part of the funding bid, 950,000 came from Scottish Government. We're applying to Fife Environmental Trust for some of the landscaping work, the community garden kind of work, and also within that, and the further contribution to the money is coming from Fife Council, which will bring a whole pot. I think the pot's about 1.3 million, 1.2 million around it overall. Fife Council is making a big investment in community facilities in the area. We've got a brand new high school which is on the ground in the next couple of years, and some of the facilities that were out of the local office will now come out of the new high school. And there's provision of a library, and there's also going to be state-of-the-art football pitches and stuff. So there's a big commitment to community facilities within the Gallatown area, within an area that's kind of the catchment area for the high school is one of the schools is the catchment area, is the Gallatown area. So the facilities will be for local people and within a ready distance from them.
My name's Annette Rushford and I'm the chairperson of Overton Community Centre. They had a meeting once, about 7 years ago now, saying that if they didn't get another committee, that unfortunately it would close down as it was committee run. So here I am. It's funded by the rent that we take in from the people that hire the hall at night times. Basically, we get a small grant from Fife Council, but then we pay rates and we pay the gas and electric bills for the place, and Fife Council maintain the building. So that's the deal at the moment. There's quite a lot on. There's a lot of things like line dancing, judo, disco dancing, dog section. There's a lot of things like that, but there's also a ladies section for the older people on a Wednesday night, and once a month we have a coffee morning for the old people. And they get quite a lot of nice outings and trips and high teas bought for them and treated nicely. And the kids, they always get either their Halloween party or their Christmas party. We never make a profit off the children or old age pensioners. We basically, from anything up to babies right up to whatever 70 odd years old, I think some of them are now, if not older, that go to the coffee mornings and that. So. And the coffee morning's grown. When we first went in the coffee morning, there was about 40 people there, but there's over 50 now, and it's still growing quite well. I would say around about 150 people easy, and they're all local people. They're not people from outside, they're all local people. We have big plans, but I think Fife Council have bigger ones. I think they're going to try and take the community centre back off us, which I would put a fight up against, because they weren't interested before, so why all of a sudden are they interested now? And I think if they were kind of honest with us and upfront, I would feel a bit better. But it's all the gossip that you find from other people that comes back to you, and yet you've had the goodness to run the hall for 7 years free of charge, because I don't get paid for doing it. I'm like volunteered it, and I loved every bit of it, but they can't be up front and tell me exactly what they really would like to do. I don't think there'd be so much for the old people to do. I don't think they're really interested in the old people. I think they're more interested in the young. And I have no objection to that. We do a lot for the young. The YW are in here, the YM are in here, Gingerbread's in here. So we already support all these groups, and anyone else that would like to join us. You know, there's still a couple of days that are not used in the hall, so they could be using them. But they don't. I think the old days pensioners would get a riot. I don't think they'd be too happy about losing their hall. But I don't think they're really interested in the older people. I think they're only interested in the youth.
You mentioned the prices might change.
Well, they will definitely change. That if you go to hire a hall from any Fife Council hall, I think it's something like £12.50 an hour or something. We're only, the large hall is only £8.50. Our small hall is only £7. It's went up twice in 7 years. We don't need to put it up. The money we generate is enough for us to be able to do the things that we want to do and still have a little bit behind us in case something major happens. You always get asked on the forums that you send for the grant, what would you do if this grant was taken off you? I think I could probably go quite well for quite a few years, even without the £2,000 grant from Fife Council, with the money that we get in. And that's not being greedy. We don't apply for any grants unless we thought we would actually need the help, because we're sitting quite comfortable. Well, we've got a few ideas about getting together with other groups and opening up the community centre more for everybody. So I think we should, between them and ourselves, we can make this community centre a success.
My name is Susan Hanlon. I'm the Project Manager for Central Govan Action Plan and Govan Cross Townscape Heritage Initiative. The Central Govan Action Plan was launched back in 2006 very much at the request of local community members who were tired of the decline of Govan Town Centre over the last 60 years or so and wanted something done. So they joined forces with Glasgow City Council, and together they formed a steering group which overseen the production of a comprehensive and multifaceted physical regeneration plan which analysed the decline of Govan and very much sought to identify what Govan's assets were in regeneration terms and implement an action plan that would realise those assets and make Central Govan attractive, vibrant and prosperous. The backbone of Central Govan Action Plan has been the new housing provision. In the space of 3 years we built houses on 6 derelict sites, gap sites in Govan, producing 500 new homes, bringing a population boost back to the town centre of more than 2,000 people. So that by far has been one of the largest achievements, £68 million worth of investment and a rake of awards for design and innovation. So some of the architecture of the housing is phenomenal, and the houses themselves have proven to be really, really popular with the community. We've also undertaken a historic building restoration programme. So the building that you're in this now, Orkney Street Enterprise Centre, was refurbished, completing in 2009. And you're in the Edwardian prison cell block, where the cells have been amalgamated into little business start-up units, and the rest of the building has a range of voluntary orgs, including ourselves here, working for the benefit of the local community. Undertaking refurbishment works to make the Pearce Institute wind and watertight, Fairfield shipyard offices have been saved from demolition thanks to the work predominantly of Govan Workspace, and they're being converted into 18,000 square feet of business and office accommodation, and also really importantly a publicly accessible heritage space where you can go and learn about the role of Govan in shipbuilding on the Clyde. We've carried out 2 phases of public space improvements to give Govan a real sense of arrival as you arrive, to make it look like a place that's well cared for and looked after, and it's something that's very stylish and contemporary, but which fuses with the exceptional historic built environment which still remains in Govan and that we're trying to preserve. Through the Townscape Heritage Initiative, we're doing a range of essential building repairs to some of the signature buildings that surround Govan Cross. We've also restored the Aitken Fountain and the Pier statue. We have a really ambitious shopfront improvement programme that's underway, which is all about creating real appeal and attractive streets and attracting traders and footfall back to Govan, and we're just seeing the first of those shopfront improvements coming off site. I think the most important of which has been Cafe 13, which is an independent cafe that is trading out onto the new public space at Govan Cross and has had a completely transformational effect. I think it's the one thing that everybody in the community is talking about. So in terms of impact of investment, that's probably it in terms of the way it's lifted aspirations for Govan. So that's just a little bit of what we've done, but I think the physical transformations have been stunning. The Central Govan Action Plan is a funding framework, so it's made up of a range of different funds, and essentially each project or each action that we carry out has a lead agency attached to it, whether that's a local organisation, whether it's Glasgow City Council, whether it's myself here at the Central Govan Action Plan project team. It's up to each lead individual to raise money, and that's how we've been particularly successful today. We started off with a budget of nothing and an aspirational plan of what had to happen in Govan. And since 2006 till now, we've invested nearly £90 million, which is a huge amount of money and is a really sustained and quite incredible programme. And I think the momentum that we've achieved through that programme has in turn generated a lot of credibility for CGAP within the local community. Going forward, the challenges obviously are, as time moves on, organisations change, the economy has changed. We are now in a position where we're coming to the end of the first phase of both Central Govan Action Plan and Govan Cross THI, and we're about to be writing bids to hopefully take them on into another 3 to 5 years of investment within the local area. However, the challenges in terms of achieving that are big. Clearly money is not quite as readily available as it might have been when Central Govan Action Plan started, but we do have a track record to go on, and we do have a huge amount of community support both on our steering group and through local organisations who have seen the stunning physical changes I think that have happened in Central Govan and the way that that has changed aspirations and probably perceptions for the area. I think the beauty of what's happened with Central Govan Action Plan is that we've been able to draw on a multitude of individuals and organisations to deliver the aims within the action plan, and I think that's because the action plan had or set out a very, very clear vision, and it was something that people, because it came from the local community, could buy into and saw as sincere and had integrity. Literally as a multitude of individuals and organisations, including Glasgow City Council as our lead partner on our steering group. We have all of the local housing associations. We have Govan Workspace, which is a local kind of small medium enterprise providing workspace to the community. We have all of our locally elected members. We have 5 community reps covering the 2 community councils and the voluntary management committees in each of the local housing associations. We have Strathclyde Partnership for Transport, the NHS, community planning, and that's just on our core steering group, which is our main lobbying and consultative and planning forum. On each of the individual projects, I mean, the range of partnerships just mushrooms, because if you can imagine a housing project will have the area planners, development planners involved, the development staff of a housing association, the management committee agreeing the design, the actual design team itself, the contractor. We once did a wee map of the partnership structure for Central Govan Action Plan that literally spanned sheets and sheets of paper on a wall all. So it really has grown, and I think it's a really extensive partnership framework, and we've been really lucky in terms of the collaboration that we've had from people, and the passion and knowledge that we've had for people to contribute to what it is we're trying to do. I think there's masses of opportunities, and I think that's possibly what really attracts and invigorates people about Govan, is that they just see its potential. It's hard, I think, to understand fully how it managed to get into such a spiral of decline. But certainly the work that we've carried out to date demonstrates that an area can be turned around, but all we're seeing at the moment is the kind of green shoots of recovery in Govan. There's so much more to do, and obviously the opportunity exists to maintain structures like Central Govan Action Plan and the Townscape Heritage Initiative, which I think have worked hand in hand with some of the other local organisations who are very much looking at more social and economic interventions into the regeneration of Govan. On a kind of individual project basis, the main opportunity at the moment, and the one that we want to pursue, is the creation of a link between Govan across the river back onto the Partick side. We see that as being the main action that we could take that would have the greatest transformational effect. As Govan as a settlement grew, because it was the fording point of the River Clyde, and ironically it's the one thing that you can't do in Govan now, so it's certainly one of the things that's missing, and it's I suppose the priority that we are focusing on in terms of raising funding alongside some of the work we've got to do to try and maintain the CGAP structures. I think the barriers are going to be if the structures that have built up and the momentum that's built up is allowed to wane at all. I think it'll be very, very difficult to get it moving again. Sometimes your greatest strengths are also your greatest weaknesses, so it's important, I think, to try and protect what we've built here and recognise the plus points. Acknowledge that obviously everything's a learning process, but and we can always make improvements, but recognise what we've all achieved here in Govan and try and maintain that. The biggest barrier is going to be achieving investment. It's more difficult now than ever to raise money, and without that, it's difficult to maintain a structure and to maintain investment in an area like Govan, which needs more than, let's say, the 6 years that CGAP's been in existence to turn it around, because we're looking at a decline of more than 60 years that's kind of taken hold of the area. Well, here's what I'd like to think will happen. I'd like to think that Central Govan Action Plan, or some form of local planning structure which has the community at its heart and where the community voice is heard and acted upon, is maintained. I'd like to see the fast link bus route have a positive effect on Govan Town Centre, and that Govan starts to benefit from the new £1 billion hospital development up the road in terms of jobs and increased footfall into the town centre. And I would love to think that within the next 2 years we might have a bridge, or be well on our way to getting a bridge, and that Water Row starts to be developed in a way that reflects its history and culture, and that it becomes a really distinct and vibrant hub that puts not just Govan but Glasgow back on the map. So that would be my hopes for Govan.
My name is Jim McMillan. I'm the outreach worker here at Sunny Govan Community Radio, and I've been with the project since the beginning in pre-1998 broadcast. Sunny Govan is still run by Heather McMillan, the project manager, and Heather was a mature student at Glasgow University, and she'd been recruited for that from a project within Govan. And when she was going to a placement, something happened, the placement fell down. The previous thing she'd done was a directory of the area, the mechanical information, where everybody is, how they can be contacted, what activities they offer. So when this next placement fell down, one of the quotes that we had read about community radio was that it can reach the places that postals can't. And in talking in the research for this directory, we knew a lot of groups, kind of self-funded, self-help type groups. They didn't really obviously have a marketing strategy or a budget for advertising, so they didn't have the money for a poster. So we're reading this information, we're saying, well, that's the thing, there's so much good work going on every day in our communities, but it's never reaching a level where it's widely known. It's known in the media, because the media was portraying Govan and similar schemes round about the city as being full of crime, drugs, vandalism, no full achievement. And if we go back to a couple of things like Jimmy Reid looking at the windows and saying behind that window there's a racing driver, if they get the chance, if they get the opportunity. And that was the thing, the disconnect between what the community was offering and what the community was aware that was there. There's nothing worse to us than somebody coming and saying there's nothing for me in the community. We would say there probably is. We've maybe done some research, we can find that. Or if there isn't something in the community for you, we can work with interested others to provide that if we think there's a need and a demand. So although it became using radio as the vehicle, really it was an ideal opportunity to use as an engagement tool, because the radio was a thing that was going to happen later after the conversation. Think, oh, that's good information, I can use that in the radio, either by copying it or recording it, or actually bringing the person in. So it was a good means of bringing interested people or interesting people with information that could help address the community's information deficit. People were looking for information or looking for activity, but where did they go to find that? How did they engage with the community as it was? Every day the door's open to the community, Tim. We obviously have to be prepared for whoever or whatever comes through that door. That's something through the years, and I say, but now we're in full-time broadcasting mode. We're now in our second 5-year licence, so we've got a constant 365, 24/7. We've got to keep this service available to air. That obviously brings people in because of that engagement in their own home or in their car, or through their friends saying you should listen to Sunday Govan Radio, it's got X, Y and Z. So people come through with some expectations of a radio station, whatever's in their head of what a radio station would be. But when they come through the door, I think with the friendly approach, the open access to the staff, I think they find we're a wee bit more homely in what they initially envisaged. And then for that to find that you're in a creative space, you're in a safe and supportive environment with other like-minded people that, like you, had just came through the door yesterday or months before. Because we've got 365, 24/7 to fill in terms of broadcast, there's always space for somebody new, there's always space for something interesting, and we always believe that people bring something with them. They might not think they've got that in them, but that's the thing about what comes out through the conversation. The first conversation strikes up usually is, what kind of music you into, big man? For there, we start getting into whatever conversation develops for that, and that's the thing about a common thread. At the moment, I would say we usually work on a kind of 50% basis of people with high support and special needs. Again, a lot of people haven't been in that environment, so they see that there's different needs in different communities. And again, that thing, when somebody sees something, we're always in the mind of how can we help address that problem, find a solution. We're not in the business of walking past things, it's other people's job to do that. The radio is a thing where people know that out there there's people listening that might benefit from their lived experience, but also that thing about inspiration is to say, I was in this place, now I'm in that place, I've got friends, I've got a network, I've got a support, I've got a social life. And not just that, that's what the Your Station, Your Creation comes into. These things never existed before. The radio didn't exist before. It's the fact that there's a collective effort to create things. Just like a couple of blocks down, we've got the shipyards. They make stuff on a daily basis. We make stuff on a daily basis, but it's our skills and talents that we maybe not have known we had before. That's what creates things. And to us, in the radio terms, we say we'll play status quo, but we don't accept the status quo. Things must change, not only in people's lives, but in the environment and the culture that surrounds them. Having a diverse team. We always think you've got to have a wacky on the team. You've got to have somebody that thinks totally out of the box, because we've got to serve. We're a geographic station. We've got to serve all the communities that live within our broadcast, and that's the thing about learning about how different communities of interest, learning what their problems are, and hopefully working with them to provide solutions. Whether that's having to engage with the housing associations locally, to work with the council, or to work with the government. The great thing about being a media organisation is you can take your microphone anywhere and ask questions. And normally people for our backgrounds and our communities don't have the opportunity There's very little open meetings that they can attend, that they can put their hand up and ask a question. A lot of these things are locked down. There's an information deficit because we believe the people who are charged with providing that information serve mostly their own interests. We don't see a programme on sanctions, and yet we believe we've had programmes on sanctions. We had Dr David Webster in last week who'd produced a paper in response to the Oakley review about sanctions being a deliberate policy. And this information is available, freely available, but the media don't pick up on it. And yet we see 900,000 people in the past year have been sanctioned. That's 1 in 4 of benefit claimants. That has a terrible impact on the lives of that person and the ripples throughout their family and their community. And again, to serve that information deficit, if we can support people with information that when they go to tribunals or to fight their case, that's where we can come in and bring in professionals because of the networks and links we have. So although we say the radio's a vital emergency service, we hope it's never needed as an emergency service, but we think it has proved itself during the bad winters a few years ago. And it is always that time when information is not freely available. Information is maybe regarded to some as being powerful, and for some people they can monetise that information and sell you the information that we think should be freely available. The TV licence, why should anybody under maybe £15,000 pay a TV licence? Because that information could be vital to them, and if they don't have the means for it, then their licence could be, obviously, you can get put in jail eventually for not having a TV licence. That's a terrible indictment to a nation that isn't serving its communities with the information it needs, but would tax and punish people for no fully engaging with that system. December, January are fallow months in community. It's hard to really generate income and when people are on holiday and all that sort of stuff. So cash flow is a vital thing for us. Again, we're putting on an event this Friday, again to raise awareness and obviously to raise funds, but also to highlight another community of interest who are using music to articulate the problems in their own lives and their peers and in their community, by promoting Scottish hip hop. And again, to sustain myself, we have to work with other partners and stakeholders. We obviously have to try and monetise some of our activities, but we're in the belief of we don't wait for the money to do the work. We hopefully do the work and do a job that people think that should be funded, that should be supported. And we're diverse mix of funding, because to be in anybody's pocket, Tam, as a media organisation, it can't be. We obviously have to cut our throat at times by saying we have ethics. We won't take advertising from William Hill or others like that. We won't take advertising from Wonga or Payday Loans. These people are actively trying to pursue us to work. What we do there is say, we can't take your money for advertising. We'd never advertise in 2-for-1 plays on the puggy machines. But if you were to give us a 500 or 1,000 or a significant figure and do some work that benefits the community, then we can report on that good news. But for them to actually engage with it, again, that's a kind of Trojan horse effect. We hopefully, when we work with partners and stakeholders, not only engage with them, hopefully we get in enough to help maybe change their culture. And to us, Bright House actually support Govan High in their newsletter. And yet when I asked the Vice Principal, and I've asked some students, does anybody know how to work out the APR of Bright House? Nobody does. And to me, that's an agency that's targeting our community. And it's not transparent how much they're going to charge you. They're actually hopefully thinking you're going to miss a payment, so that the increase in percentage terms is even more. So we have to obviously make a stand, make a decision to draw a line in the stand. We won't go further than that. We think if there's something worth doing, we maybe not use our money. We maybe try and persuade others that they should come in there. When we were offered £5,000 for Accenture, it's a big company that you see on the back of the Champions League boards when they're getting interviewed. I don't know really what they are. I know they do insurance and financial things. But when they offered us £5,000 for our marketing purposes, we said no, we do word of mouth marketing. We have a radio station to create awareness. But could you pay for this course from Glasgow University called an Activate course? Now, 17 of our volunteers from the age of 18 to 74 a diverse mix, a Polish guy, a Brazilian guy, and male, female, great diverse mix. They all completed their course. Most of them hadn't a formal qualification. They got their first certificate at Glasgow University. 4 people from that course are now doing a community development degree. And that's something but bringing the university to Govan and having Govan people have access to that information and to create people who will go to the university but they still live in the community, so their information is retained in the community. Hopefully they show leadership skills that they can show others that there's a pathway out of whatever they're doing, and we always believe that the best way to get yourself out of a bad situation is to educate yourself. We have a very strong link with the Oxfam UK poverty programme. That's been a very successful relationship. That's allowed us to tap into a lot of the intellectual properties as well as the grassroots organisations that Oxfam works with, and it means that there, the policy forum, we can sit beside academics who are again maybe working on policy papers for the government or in response to government actions. So that gives us the knowledge that again is maybe not widely available outside academic circles. Because of the engagement we have here in the community, we can find what people are anxious about, especially in the short term. That's saying about sanctions and food banks and all these life-saving type organisations. So we can kind of coordinate our response with what we hear and feel for the community and what we know is the direction of travel of the council or the government. So Oxfam's a great player for that situation. Obviously we have a stronger link now because of the new leadership at Govan Housing Association, so we're working more and more with that organisation. Myself being outreach worker, one of the strands I work in is addiction, which is obviously an affliction in our communities. There's Scotland, as you know, have the top experts in the world when it comes to addiction and recovery, but unfortunately it's taken a long time, generations really, for that information and good practice to work on the ground. Our job again there is to work with smaller self-help organisations to tool them up with the information, the audience development, the communication skills, to not only work on the ground but to be able to engage with these agencies that can help with the resource, either it's funding or seconding workers or working with the community addiction teams, the CAT teams. Try to get people on the ground to realise that there is help out there. One of the ways to engage with these groups is maybe through groups that you come across when they're taking their kids to school. A lot of groups are maybe like Govan Help are based in a school, so that's something about having community resources more active and more visible in the community. Because we're working with these partners, we can say that we know about you, but the community doesn't know about you, so that's why we've actually brought you in for an interview, and during the interview we can get a bit more of your practice and how it actually works, and we can again, like the Trojan horse, if you're in there you can help change and help direct those resources to what the community are really asking for. But when it comes to partnerships and stakeholders, there's too many to name, and we're maybe only working with them for a month, a week, or longer term. Depends how those relationships. We always try to cultivate them so they're longer term. But for some people that come into our community, they're maybe coming in. We always try to work with them to leave a legacy, rather than getting funded to come in, no spending the funding in the area, and when they leave, no leaving a legacy. Again, that's the thing, but if we didn't have a media organisation in our location, who else would challenge or help to find out what, not just what they're here to do, but how can we sustain that knowledge, keep that knowledge in the community? And that's what I'm saying about the Activate course, where people can go on and get a degree and still work in the community, but with that added extra knowledge. They know there's a global problem with poverty, there's a global problem with addiction, but they can learn for, we always say work local but think global. Is there something else maybe somebody's done, as it just says a boy come here from Sweden, he's came here to live now, but he's bringing like what they say, the Swedish model, so we can learn from him, he can learn from us, and again for him to be active in a new community, that's a bonus, and that shows how maybe attractive the actual environment that was created when he came the first time. He's thought, nah, I'd like to get back and stay in tune with that environment, and the first thing he did was to come back to see us, because he wants to spread awareness of his knowledge, and again that cluster effect. Once we've got somebody that's active and wants to move forward with something, then we can get other like-minded individuals and groups to work with them to achieve that. Just on that term, a statistic. Again, you can interpret statistics however you want sometimes, but one of the things that we'd read was that there was more people leave the Scottish care system and get degrees than what was leaving Govan High and getting degrees. And that was proved when Stig got his degree, same degree as Heather, again a succession management, his community development degree. When we went to the local shops, including ASDA, who are obviously a huge organisation 24/7, we were looking for a graduation card. There wasn't any graduation cards in Govan, Tam.
Yeah.
There wasn't a need, there wasn't a demand.
Just off.
So hopefully now there is, because there's 4 people there that hopefully will get cards when they graduate. So we'll convince park stationers or others to provide. But aye, that's something but a sad statistic, Tam, because when I was interviewed by one of the Oxfam partners about food and the growing of food and local food, which I'm very interested in. I told them that yes, we do have a local fruit shop within 5 minutes walk from here, but the only way she can sustain her selling fruit is by selling flowers to those who have lost their lives prematurely. The radio should be able to create awareness and engage people in the discussions, the topics of the day. We obviously try to work with groups who maybe want to advertise their projects or create awareness of their projects. But we have this strange, is it a dichotomy, you would say, where because they know we're a charity, for some strange reason they expect us to donate to them. That's a strange, because what we have in here is the principle of a packet of biscuits. If you're going to meet your granny or you see your auntie, you wouldn't go and eat their biscuits. Us Scots, Glaswegians, we go and we take biscuits or we take something for a wee cup of tea with our auntie or our granny. And it's the same thing if somebody comes in here and doesn't bring biscuits and is asking us to provide a service to them. We can't sit and discuss it with their biscuits. We have to use ours. So there's a drain on our resources with people coming in and asking for things who should know better, who should know that we're a small charity, we struggle to survive on a daily basis. They should bring something to the table because they're resourced, they're probably, and I would say that the average wage of people that come in and ask me these questions are over £30,000 a year. And that's what I'm saying about a resource. If we had £30,000, we could maybe employ 3 people, possibly more. So that's the thing about the price of fish, Tam. To be resilient, again, that's the thing about it's resilience to be able to, for the long, hard term, for the future. To sustain ourselves is through partnerships and stakeholders, because we can't go where we want to go. We have to sort of ride the tide in a sense where there's a dynamic in the community that sometimes can end up in negative behaviour. And that's the thing, unless there's somebody there to hold the course, we can transfer and channel that into positive behaviour. And to us, as being a community radio station, we've formed what we call the Scottish Community Broadcast Network, which is, by next April, there'll be 25 full-time stations. We've formed this network because we thought, like when we started 16 years ago, there was nobody to go to say, how did you do that? So we thought, as a self-help organisation, but also as a bigger structure, because although Sunny Govan has lobbied the government and been successful, we thought as an individual station we don't have that much power, but in the collective of 25 stations representing the East, the West Coast, the Borders and the Highlands and Islands, that's a great spread of collective voices if we can get them all on the same message to say, we're at the moment trying to build an industry and an infrastructure out our back pocket. Why is the government not engaging with us and helping us? Because we provide a dynamic in the community that's yet to be given statistics, really. That's something we can see the improvements we make, we can write reports and that. But unless we can coordinate that response for all the stations to say, look at the amalgamation and the aggregation of this good work, and yet it's resourced by the people who do it. We have to raise them. I have to raise my money for my wages.
Yeah, I think as well.
As well as raise the money for the station's activities. Yeah. And if I can't raise the money for my wages,
you can't do the job.
No, I still do the job, but I have to put myself in. That word that was out last year was precariat. I'm in a precarious position. The station's in a precarious position. We still do the work, and it's just lucky that I've been able to qualify for a credit card, because then I can ride that. I didn't get paid this month and I'm not going to get paid next month. So I'm hanging it out. But for 16 years, we're still here. It's just the two buzzwords just on that time is social return on investment, and also the latest kind of development from that is building social capital. And it's an amazing time when you're introduced to something, that concept. And it's the same as when we went to get our first full-time FM licence. On the board from Ofcom, the regulator, was kind of like the 10 Commandments. We looked at ourselves and thought, how did they get our 10 points? Who gave them that? Because that's what we were looking at. We see others in the room, they seen that 10 and thought, it'd take a long time to achieve that. And yet to us that was our CV that was up on the wall. When we hear the thing about building social capital, again it was like, that's what we do. We've not come up with that phrase, building social capital. This is just what we do, as you say, fighting in many fronts. But exactly as they say in building social capital, that's what we're engaged in doing. But until maybe these words come out and these things are quantified, how do you know what you're doing and how much impact that is doing? But the fact in 16 years, we've seen people we've worked with come back with their kids, and we work with our kids now. So that's what I'm saying, but that succession in the community to say that it is a creative space. Because as you know, Govan has produced ballet dancers, we've produced footballers, we've produced surgeons, we've got people at university. But
greatest football manager in the world.
But it's that thing where it's an individual thing. Sometimes it's linked to the community as the community produced that, but mostly it's a kind of, this individual done it for themselves. No, usually you find that the community, the family and the structures that were in the community, that's what supported that person to get that way. It's very rare for an individual to rise above the ranks, as you know, Tam, without some help or some input for some external agency. Well, this is the thing, Tam. This is obviously going to be one of the most exciting years in our lifetime, probably, as Glaswegians and as Scots. And we think to us, I'm not saying we've been forced into the position, but we think we're in a position now where we need to make a decision to go along with some things and join in type thing, or to keep that step back and see the whole picture and challenge some of the negative things, challenge some of the legacy aspects of both the Commonwealth Games and what the referendum will be, because the referendum will not change anything immediately. It'll take a couple of years before these things fall into place, and that's why what we did last year to use this year was take our line from the Arbroath Declaration of Independence, the 100 signatures. What we thought was we'll gather 100 voices, diverse ages, male, female, for all different backgrounds, and the question we would ask, and normally we would bring them into this studio alone, don't sit in and colour their vision or colour their speech. The question we ask is whether or not Scotland goes independent. That's a different question, but what we ask people is, what is your ideal Scotland? And when we get that, Tam, and we obviously listen back, because it's like a survey, but when we listen back to it, a lot of the themes are the same themes. Everybody's early years, more for children, more activities for young people and teenagers to keep them off the streets again. Obviously it's that thing about social justice. One of the things that came up was a theme that, again, social justice, you know, would be there, but the other thing that came up was green justice. So we thought, and to my knowledge there's at least 3 people that mentioned the phrase green justice. And again, because people suffer from, as you know, in the islands, about climate change. And again, it's that thing about your communities eroding before your very eyes. You can do what you can to support and help people to put those barriers up and stop the sea from coming. But it's that thing where some people are winners and some people are losers. For us, it's that thing about the early years, about education. The other thing I think was very strong was the thing about a lot of people are watching TV and hearing English-based news and think that's what's happening here. Especially last week, the conversation about Michael Gove in the schools, saying no, education is a devolved thing. But that thing about the media, we think is one of the most important things, where we don't see ourselves as others see us. When it comes to this great Scottish canon that we have in music, we don't hear ourselves as others should hear us. We've got a great export potential, as we always have as a nation, with people going abroad to do things, create things. But it's that thing about, we like to think that music carries our language and carries our culture. And some of that, again, I heard a statistic for the PRS saying that 70% of any Scottish band's royalties come from abroad, because you've got a very small home market. So it's to be more outward looking as individuals, as Scots or Glaswegians, because to engage with the rest of the world means people come here. And when they come here, and even if they come locally, we know that the spend in the local shops, I've tried to quantify that in a couple of years that I've been here, we think with our volunteers spending in the shops locally, it's possibly worth over £20,000 a year to the local community in shops. We obviously want to have the shops being successful and open to maybe employ people. That's the whole thing about creating opportunities for employment. But that's our thing about the future, is we believe that everyone has a worth. We just don't think that worth has been quantified and been acknowledged. Some people are always losers. When they do houses up, they do the houses that face the main road. The ones in the scheme are done it. So it's that thing, but we don't want things just to be a front. We want actually what's behind that to be real, genuine and transparent.
My name is Maria Leahy. I am the chairman of the Friends of Elder Park. Friends of Elder Park is a charity and a pressure group, and we were set up, I think it's 6 years ago now. The park itself was left as a gift to the people of Govan, so we look after the deed of gift that we inherited from Isabella Elder. Initially it was set up because there was some controversy about who owned the park and what it was for, and there was a bit of a push and pull between the people of Govan and the council, and so the Friends of Elder Park was set up. We, as a charity, try to uphold certain things from the deed of gift and other things as well, but it's quite clear that Isabella Elder wanted us to promote environmental education and healthful recreation. So we endeavour to keep to her word on that. So the park is the only and certainly the biggest green space in Govan. We have a pond and a rose garden, and over the years there have been other things there. We've got facilities for children. There's a basketball pitch, and hopefully there'll be more things in the future. But over the years it's gone through all kinds of changes, not all of them for the better. So we're trying to push through some improvements so that people feel more ownership over this space and use it. It's absolutely crucial. I think that the park is, for me, it's the jewel in the crown. I know a lot of people feel like that. Generations of people have come and spent time here and had fun here. So, you know, in a place where there's a lot of streets of tenement housing and stuff like that, we have this sort of open space, which is just sort of, in my opinion, just a really good place for people to come and think and have some kind of connection with nature, and otherwise that might be quite difficult here in Govan. And a place to come and gather, as you say, and to come and hold events. We've got all kinds of events that happen here, and it is for the people to use as a space. So just to keep it going as such, and to keep it maintained, and to keep promoting those sorts of positive things happening. The biggest resource that we have is the park itself. Within the park there are two different children's play areas. There is the pond, and the boating club are there. They make model boats and display them on the pond. We do have an outdoor adult gym equipment that's just recently been installed, which is getting a huge amount of use. So in terms of resources, we're in the library now. This library came with the park. It was it was intended for the use of the workers and the people of Govan, that they would be able to come and access education and recreation in that way. I suppose reading at that time was, I suppose, akin to watching a soap or something like that. But so this very building was purpose built and designed and is situated within the park. So although we don't take anything to do with the sort of management of this building, we use it a lot. We use it for meetings. So this is a big resource for us as well. Other than that, resource-wise, our big asset is our members. So we have over 100 members at the moment. We're gathering pace. There's going to be a big recruitment drive to get more members in. It's people that are our resources, people in nature, and the goodwill. We're really proud of working with as many of the organisations and people within Govan as we can, and there are so many, but we've been working with, just to name a few, the schools, Govan High, St Saviour's, Puri Park, Riverside. There's the Victory Christian Centre right here that we've been engaging with, who are really positive for us. We've got the Salvation Army, all the library workers and the staff here from Glasgow Life have been great. We've recently done some projects with the Riverside Museum, and that's ongoing, looking at the history and how the park was important to entertainment, including the bandstand that was once here. We're currently working with, we're just about to start a bigger project with the National Theatre Scotland, engaging with that bandstand idea. But our resources, or our partners, sorry, include Plantation Productions down at the Portal have been excellent, you know, and we work with them, and gosh, Sunny Govan, Jip. It's hard to remember everybody, all the local, you know, the cafes, the Love Cafe and the Lint House Housing and Elder Park Housing Association, Govan Housing Association. Everybody has been, because we work on a budget of zero, sort of as a rule, we beg and we make phone calls, and every time we do, everybody's really, really helpful and feels really strongly about the park. So we're lucky in that sense. The barriers, I would say, are to do with the fact that unfortunately it does come down to money. So a lot of the things that we like to do, we can't afford to do. And there have been large amounts of money promised to us in the past that didn't come through, and lots of projects that were supposed to happen that didn't. The council's budget have been cut so much, so we've only got one park attendant who's absolutely amazing. So barriers are perhaps a lack of help financially, but opportunities, you know, to counteract that, we've got the Southern General that's being built there on the corner. Brookfield Multiplex are building that, and there's, you know, the corporate social responsibility. So we're trying to rattle their cage and see what we can get from them. We have a lot of plans of what we'd like to see in the park and what the people would like to see in the park. The opportunities with the Commonwealth Games coming up. There's all kinds of things kicking about. There's just this sense that 2014 certainly there's going to be something big in Govan, probably around the Govan Fair. So we're working quite a lot with the Govan Fair Committee. We sort of team up with them quite closely to make that event in the summer as big as possible. And God, there's just so many options and opportunities for the future. But I think what we'd really like to see is a sense of legacy, that what we do, we're trying to, for example, we're planting plants around the perimeter that are perennial and that come up stronger every year, and you know, just something that will last and mean something and make a difference. And that difference can literally be the environment just seeming more pleasant.
Impacts on health and well-being.
We believe strongly in that.
We're looking at a big sporting event and a new hospital.
Yeah, exactly. So it's no small deal, and I actually, you know, I think everybody understands the sort of weight that these sorts of improvements can add to a community that's moving forward, that is improving, that's just going through such a positive transformation at the moment. In the next 2 years, I think Govan will change. It is already changing. I know that the Southern General, like I say, just being built at the other side of the park there, is going to change the amount of people that come in and out of Govan. So what we need to make sure of is that the resources are here for the people that live here, so that they don't feel that they're being pushed aside, and so that there's enough for everybody to enjoy. I hope that there's legacy. I hope that the things that we do, certainly this year with this sort of swell of interest and perhaps input with the Commonwealth Games, will not just be a fleeting sort of parachute in and then take off again with nothing remaining. Certainly the bandstand's my little priority, and the more we talk about it, the more it happens. So there will be a lot of changes, but hopefully there'll all be improvements.
Right, I'm Alice Conley and I'm Govan Sea Rents Association, from which the Friends of Pacific Gardens came. Well, the project originally was brought about because there was a need for it in the area. It was actually a dangerous place because it was a hidden place where they went in and took their drugs, and it was really just an absolute mess. So the Residents Association decided something's got to be done about this. And it was decided to make it into a garden, which events are held.
Mm-hmm. So this was a bit of spare ground that was being
abused? It was a spare ground that was being abused with alcoholics, drug takers, and I'll not get into what else.
And what did you create from that then?
We created from that a garden which activities and events could be held, such as Bugs Ball for the nursery, there was Country and Western nights, there was Valley, that's the Indian festival. There was all sorts of events, and the police were involved, the fire brigade were involved, there were computer days, it was a marvellous thing when we were...
So the police were involved in a positive way rather than...
No, the police were involved. They actually said that it's only Friday night in Govan that they saw gunslingers and there was no drink balls.
Whereas before they were coming in.
Whereas before they were coming in, you know, and it did cut down the crime in that particular area. It's doing absolutely nothing just now. It's in danger of falling apart actually and getting back to the way it was if we don't get the help and the support, the funding. What we're actually doing is the Friends of is going to come under the umbrella of the Residents Association to try and get more volunteers involved in it, and maybe Govan Housing involved. They've promised to support us with bodies, you know, funding I don't know about. Oh, it's absolutely marvellous because there was all ages involved. There was teenagers there, there was elderly there, there was toddlers there. It was absolutely did, and everybody took ownership of it. Even the teenager took ownership of it. And it's been going from 2008, and it's still in a relatively good state, but it's in danger of going downhill. The only one we've got is Govan Housing, who maintain the area, but we really need resources. We need to replant the area because it really was a lovely space to begin with, but the plants are all kind of dying back, as you can think. 2008, you know what it is just now. It's just needing all replanted and brought up to standard again.
When it was at its height though, you had quite a lot of partners, didn't you?
We did. We had everybody, we had all the agencies involved. In fact, it actually won a Clean Glasgow award, and it was shortlisted for a surf award. That shows you the standard of the area, you know. But I don't know what kind of award it'll get now. You know, the barriers are the expertise to help us, and the funding, of course. I mean, to me it was £353,000. What a waste of money if somebody didn't help us maintain this area.
And ideally, would you say it would be getting a good partnership with people who can provide technical support, but maybe hands-on support as well?
Hands-on support to help me as a chairperson to fill out grant forms and everything, because all the big organisations have got these people at hand. I don't have the expertise to do that, you know, I need help. If we don't get help, can't see it moving forward at all.
That'd be a real shame, wasn't it? Because
it would be a real shame and a real waste of money. I mean, where's the sense? Where's the economic sense in?
Yeah, places like that.
People doing this, you know.
Yeah, they lift the neighbourhood and then there's a reduction in a lot of issues. Like,
well, it's just, yeah, to me, it's not a tremendous amount of help we're needing. We're just needing that support, but right now, in economic climate, I think it's the big agencies that have got all the help. Especially, may I say, the East End, with the Commonwealth Games. I personally feel that this area has been neglected.
Been around a long time. Govan Workspace has been operating trading since 1981, and the main purpose is to create employment, help generate the local economy, and we do that by providing premises for small businesses. So to date we've refurbished 3 sort of historic buildings and let them out to small businesses. We've got about 120,000 square feet of space, and there's more than 500 people working in those units. Where we are today, this is the 4th project. We're just in the very final stages of restoring the A-listed Fairfield shipyard offices. Probably going out to the market in about a month's time to begin letting. And we're providing here about just under 20,000 square feet of high quality studio spaces, and we're hoping to attract creative industries. The quality of the premise is much higher than what we've been able to provide elsewhere. We've managed to do that partly because it is A-listed, and we've attracted a lot of historic grants, government grants for historic buildings, which has made a huge difference to what we've been able to do. We have learned an awful lot from what local people have been telling us for the last 30 years about the importance of heritage and how Govan really has a unique identity. It's older than Glasgow, and people keep reminding us of that. Over the past, 10 years now, really, we've been trying to promote that heritage, and we've done that in a variety of ways. One of them was the sort of campaign to get conservation area status for Govan, and that was won reasonably quickly. In 2008, the council, despite what they said previously that under no circumstances they would give Govan conservation area status, they granted it in 2008. That's helped attract grant income, which has allowed quite a number of things to happen, such as the THI, the Townscape Heritage Initiative at Govan Cross, and all the improvements to the public realm there. It's helped us attract money to this building because it's A-listed, because it's an important part of Govan's heritage. And it's helped develop plans for Govan Old Church, which is another A-listed building and probably the most important historic building in Govan. And Govan Old Church comes with its with the Govan stones, which go back to the 10th, 11th century. Monuments which aren't just nationally important, but they're internationally important. And part of our plan to continue developing the promotion of heritage is to attract more visitors, particularly to Govan Old, also to Fairfield here, but particularly to see the Govan stones. Govan Old Church is about 250 metres from the Riverside Museum, which attracts, 1 million people a year. And if we can only get a small percentage of that, then in all honesty we have a viable business centre. So there's a lot of work going into that. Last year we managed to put on a ferry between the Riverside Museum and Govan for a month. It was funded by the Riverside Museum itself, Central Government Action Plan, the City Council and ourselves. And we had almost as many visitors in July, August last year than we had the whole of the previous year. And in total, Govan Old managed to attract more than 6,000 people last year, which was a huge improvement on anything done previously. If that ferry could operate for a longer period this year, 2014, I'm sure we could really increase those visitor numbers. That's good for Govan. It's good for the local economy because they come and they spend a wee bit of money, and that's really got to be the way we think in future. Let's exploit Govan's really significant heritage. Our main activity is self-financing. In other words, our rents pay for our overheads. This building's been a wee bit different because it's A-listed, and because of that we managed to attract government grants that we've never had before, and heritage lottery grants and things like that. I think one of the problems we face is that we probably lack the resources to do everything that needs to be done in Govan. Well, we certainly do, but on the positive side, there is no doubt that the City Council and other agencies are now very positive about the whole heritage, the whole heritage significance that Govan represents, and they're doing an awful lot to promote that as well. Fairfield's been very lucky in that it's had financial support from Historic Scotland, the Heritage Lottery Fund, the European Regional Development Fund, City Council, and quite a number of trusts. But I think that's a special case. The work along at Govan Old has also attracted support from Heritage Lottery, Historic Scotland, but there's a bigger job to be done there, a much bigger job to be done. We really think that to develop that site the way it ought to be developed probably needs about £5 million. Not immediately, but over maybe 10, 12 years. And that could develop it as a major Glasgow visitor centre and tourist attraction. And that's what it deserves, particularly because it's sitting right across from the Riverside Museum. I mean, one of Govan's endless problems is reputation, isn't it? We have to really, we have to sell Govan a bit more. We have to let people know that it's unique in terms of its heritage. There isn't anywhere in Glasgow like it. The Govan stones sitting there at Govan Cross are as important as anything in Scotland. They rival, well, the only bigger collections are at Iona and St Andrews, so they deserve to be on the Glasgow tourist map. But we've got a lot to overcome to achieve that, I think. I think people have got to see Govan differently, and that takes time. We think it's happening. We think it's happening slowly but surely. There's a greater appreciation of what this community has to offer. Yeah, the big challenge, to be honest, is one of the big challenges we want to work with the local congregation at Govan Old on is making that particular project viable, because I mean it's not at the moment. It costs an awful lot of money to operate a church building, and it really requires an awful lot of imagination to generate an income stream. So together we really are trying to work to come up with imaginative ways of getting that income stream moving. And it's also, I mean, you were asking about what are the difficulties and threats. It's so difficult now to get access to significant public money, but that particular project, it deserves it, simply because of its significance nationally and internationally. And the challenge is going to be to get access to those particular funds. Being a church makes it even more difficult. And when we describe it as a visitor centre, we also think it's a place of worship, and we also think that it's a place of pilgrimage. And it should be as much a place of pilgrimage as Iona. But that comes with its own problems in terms of securing funds.
My name is Tara Bell, and I'm an artist, and for the last 2 years I've also been a researcher working with the Riverside Museum. I'm an artist that works predominantly in the public realm, so working with people in public spaces and looking at how decisions are taken for public space or how communities are built. I guess those are things that I'm really interested in. Past projects have really been looking, I'm an artist who's been based in Govan since 2009 in a variety of locations, and like a lot of people, well, like most folks who were based in Govan or living or working in Govan, sort of had the opportunity to watch the Riverside Museum get built. And as a part of that, I mean, there's quite a lot to say about that, but initiated a number of projects that were looking at how to bridge the river, how to increase connections, maybe between different community groups on the Govan side, but also how do those groups and individuals in the Govan side interact with and engage with the large organizations that are kind of around. So the SECC, the Science Center, and newly, for the last 2 years, the Riverside Museum. So as part of all that, an opportunity came up to work with the museum based in Glasgow University as a researcher, based in theatre studies. And so my work for the last 2 years as a researcher has been looking at how creative events and activities can be used to increase engagement of visitors with the museum, but also engagement of the museum with local communities. So kind of looking at how the landscape, the museum as the new kid on the block really can embed differently, engage differently, and how creative stuff can be used to help with that. Within the work that I've been doing with the museum, I proposed a series of projects really that were designed to challenge and test and hopefully move that connection forward. One of them was a reimagining of the Govan Heritage Trail. So the Govan Heritage Trail is a trail that exists. It's been out of print for about 10 years, but it's a series of heritage sites and spaces that are all on the Govan side. And so the basic idea was to think, how can we revision or reimagine the Heritage Trail? First is something that bridges the river and connects. This is a site as museums hold histories in a particular way, but also this museum is really built facing Govan. It's built facing Govan's history, so in that way it's a huge opportunity, but it's also, the river ironically is a barrier now as much as the reason for many of the industries that have happened in the past. So what I proposed was a reimagining of the Govan Heritage Trail to a series of trails, so not one but series of thematic ones that connect the Riverside Museum with Govan. And I gathered together a big team of people that involved lots of individuals from the Govan side, also lots of organizations, and staff from the Riverside Museum. So lots of staff from the museums, lots of folk from the community, kind of brainstorming and learning about Govan's history and then proposing thematic trails. I think that there's an opportunity for Govan and Govanites to really revision themselves. What should Govan be for, and what do people want it to be like and feel like, and how do we celebrate all of the sort of incredible histories that have happened, but also all the things that are amazing that are happening now. So, I mean, I think that's the thing. History is really only relevant as you can pull it from the past into the now. It has to be useful now. So, and I think the museum represents a particular opportunity in that, because Govan has such an incredible history, and this museum has over 1 million viewers, visitors, over 1 million visitors a year. So you have this opportunity to really think about how to pull people who are coming here over to Govan to visit the Fairfield shipyards when it's open, to visit the Govan Stones redisplay, to visit local businesses, and to really sort of connect those histories up in maybe more exciting ways than we've thought about before. I mean, the project as it stands has been about a year of sort of research really and development. So there was a team, I mentioned there was a team of people that we gathered together, half folks from the museum service, from all over. So some key people, some people in Riverside, but also other museums within Glasgow museums, and people from the Govan side. And there was a period of really looking at Govan's history and heritage, and then proposing a series of thematic trails. I think the biggest resource, I have to say, is definitely the people. The people that I'm working with and the local knowledge. I think the project has been designed to really privilege and highlight local knowledge. I think that's something that all institutions struggle with, finding ways to value local knowledge. And also I think museums and heritage institutions, there aren't quite enough maps for how they would bring in people from the outside world. So local folks who are experts in their community, how do we bring them in? I think they're the biggest resource, that kind of local knowledge. Otherwise, I think, as I mentioned, the museum, the visitors who come here to visit the museum are also a big resource, and that I think can't be overstated. As folks who are curious about history, curious about heritage, interested in travel and transportation. This is an ancient crossing, an ancient one. So this sort of notion of travel and movement is a really, it's an easy conceptual bridge. So that would be, I think the history is a massive resource. It's an obvious one, but a massively important one to state. Yeah, those would be the two. I mean, there's obviously finances as well, and partners. So I would say the partners kind of link with the people. I think that's a deep honor of mine to work with so many incredible people, and to also, I think most of the projects that I do are almost like building a kind of it's a dream team. I think I called it a dream team in the beginning. So this project had a dream team, and it involved a huge number of partners, and I'm just going to list them off if that's okay, because they all deserve that honoring. And there's so many, I always fear that I'm just gonna read it if you don't mind. So there's obviously the Riverside Museum. So they were a key partner and a host for the whole project. Also Govan Workspace and Govan Stones, the Govan Stones redisplay. The Govan Fair Committee were very important. The Gale, Friends of Elder Park, the Fairground Community Group, which actually we can see the fairground, the Showman's Yard. There's 2 yards literally across the river from the museum. That's an important and very hidden history, I think, that history in Govan. There I am going off on a tangent, sorry. Northlight Heritage, which is a group of, I call them kind of rogue archaeologists. And Plantation Productions, Glasgow Women's Library, and Glasgow Artist Studios. And also it's really important to say that in addition to all of those partners, many of whom had representatives who were on the team all the time, but all of whom fed in to the kind of projects, the fruit of the project, the results, the reimagined trails. We also consulted really in depth with the Govan Reminiscence Group, and we had quite a few conversations with the Seniors Film Club at the Portal, and all of those individuals. It's not just it has to be a combination of individuals and organizations, I think, to build really strong networks. You need both. It's always an exciting journey to find all the obstacles, isn't it? I think, well, the project is right now kind of at it's just finished the sort of research, the development stage, so all the ideas are really well formed. There's 5 actually proposed heritage trails. We're kind of entering into phase 2, and that's going to be primarily the production of actual bump stuff, so leaflets, a whole variety, a sort of deck of cards that has like famous people on it, the Top Trumps game. We're going to do a graphic novel that celebrates, or some kind of paper sort of graphic presentation of the ancient Govan trail, the quest for the 13 treasures. I think the first obstacle, what are the main obstacles? I think the main obstacles to the project are probably to do with longevity. So anything that's paper has a limited, you can only give out so many, you can only make so many. So that's a time and a resource problem, yeah. I think the longer term issue has to do with how the ideas and the trails are maybe promoted or disseminated. How do we, in other words, very straightforward, how do we get the word out? And how do we keep the word out? How do we keep people interested, and how do we find the people who are interested? So these different trails are all kind of designed with different audiences in mind. Many of them target young people specifically. So it'll be a kind of a learning curve, I think, for myself and the partners and the museum, really, to target, I'm not fond of that word, but to target the audiences, to find the folk who are interested in these things and make sure they have that information. And the second, can I say one more obstacle? The second obstacle would be in terms of a kind of a longevity. How do you move all of that into the digital? So, and how do you do it in a way that honors both the work that people have done to develop the project, but also the digital divide? So we want to develop something that lives in paper, and paper is finite. We want to develop something that lives as a digital resource, but we have to do that in a mindful way, because we're working with a large portion of the community doesn't have good access to the internet. It's not an obstacle, but I think it's worth mentioning. I think the real utility of these kinds of projects, there's hopefully, God willing, two. The first is that it increases connections, and that's networks between people and groups. So not an obstacle, but maybe the challenge would be to continue those relationships when the project is done. That's a big problem that institutions have, because they have project funding, or they have, they got to be on to the next project, staff time, etc. So I think that network, the obstacles to keeping those networks alive and that kind of conversation alive is really, really important. And I think that's true also between individuals.
Well, Plantation Productions manage the portal, which is an arts hub in the centre of Govan. We've got we're based there doing arts and media projects. We've got the artists in residence and the Connect space, which has become a crafts hub, and we've got Sunny Govan and all at the portal.
So I suppose the purpose of Plantation Productions is arts and regeneration, set up 2001, and we're part of the Arts and Regeneration Implementation Group. And the idea is to work across the southwest of Glasgow with artists and partners, but delivering a programme of work to the community, but it's very much about partnership working.
And you work very hands-on with what age groups in here, don't you? You've seen it, and you're alone.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, age 5, and I think our oldest participant now is 96.
Yeah, it used to be 95. But
yeah, he's had a birthday.
So the programme we deliver, over the last 3 years, we've developed a programme called Making Art Matter, and that's developed and expanded over the last 3 years to include lots of different partners, and the demand for the work has increased. The children's projects that we run in the portal have had such a high demand, we've had to double up and run sessions a few times a week. So it's been good. It's a good programme of work, and it works well in partnership. I think before we moved down to the portal, which opened in 2007, just at the end of the year in 2007, we worked outreach and partnership mainly with youth organisations. But since we moved down here, it's a much more embedded approach. So this is the kind of heart of where the programme is. And the demand has increased because people have now become more confident about having somewhere that's an arts hub in their local area. It serves the community. They've taken on ownership of the activities and actually the building itself. So the building is a physical resource, but it's also got an identity, and across the southwest, the portal's known as the hub for the Making Art Matter programme. So we do get a lot of groups that come into the portal as well, and we still deliver an outreach programme. But I would say a combination of that and the volunteers. We've got huge support from volunteers, ranging from community jobs and Bead and Blether and Woolly Wednesday, and a programme of work called Redstone TV. This is all made up of people that volunteer their time and learn skills through being involved in projects and support events. And I don't think the place would be able to function without them. So.
But you know, there are obviously we need funding to keep the place going, and at the moment we're funded through the People and Communities Fund, the local community planning, and the Robertson Trust. So we have, like everyone just now, you know, it's a cocktail of funding. You're responding to a lot of different funders, different outcomes. So
and children in need,
Young Start.
Yeah.
So that increases the management. You know, when you're getting lots of different funds coming from different places, puts a bit of pressure on a small organisation to juggle all these funds and report on them.
We've got the Artists in Residence programme next door, and that's for local artists. They work very closely on the programmes, and they also deliver a programme through the evening time, which is part of sort of a bartering system where they support Plantation or the portal by offering free art classes in the evening. And then the next shop is the Crafts Connections, and that's a fantastic partnership with, initiated through a partnership with Platform, and has developed through a Time Out project to become its own thing. So it's two local women set up Bead and Blether, and then Woolly Wednesdays evolved out of that as well. And then with Sunny Govan Community Radio, the partnership, they promote the programme throughout the year. It's just the location of being very close to each other allows us to work together. We have a programme of work of arts and wellbeing, and that works specifically with the mental health sector. We work with a lot of organisations, GAMH and SAMH and Florence House and Stuart House.
Glasgow Life as well. We've done some partnerships for community enterprise practice, and just other local arts organisations and venues like Kinnan Park.
Kinnan Park.
Some of the artists up there, we'll work with them. So we try and work closely with artists that are working in the area. For example, Tara, the Hidden Histories project we tried. It depends on the time and energy we have to partner in every initiative, but where we can, we'll support. And
we always support anything that's come into the area. It is quite it's a port of call for organisations coming in, because we've got an engaged community. So if folk want to come and with CGAP, for instance, we do a lot of projects in partnership with CGAP, because to raise the profile of the Townscape Heritage Initiative, and just opportunities to engage with this local community, because there are so many attend the groups. But we work right out to Penally, with the Penally Public Art Group and Swamp and Ardennes. We have quite a wide-ranging group of folk we work with. Currently there's the Time to Shine strategy for the Youth Arts Development Hub, which Creative Scotland have put out that they would like 9 hubs across Scotland. It created quite a lot of interest, because there was quite a lot of money allocated. I think there was 1.5 million from the Scottish Government went to Creative Scotland. Spread out across Scotland's not that much, but it was enough to initiate the interest of arts organisations, and particularly arts organisations that work with youth. and youth organisations to come together to discuss better networked approaches. That's been quite a good opportunity just to start linking up across the city, looking at resources and looking at what organisations are specifically arts youth and how we can work better together. There's also the New South Glasgow Hospital. It'll be interesting to see how the work and partnership pans out there, because I think there's a real interest in working in the local community and with the local community, so that it's not just this standalone hospital, but we have an approach that's more preventative rather than trying to stop people from ending up in hospital. But yeah, that's an interesting opportunity. And the arts and well-being, it's something that we're doing a social return on investment at the minute. It's more for us about measuring the social impact. There's not an awful lot of research out there around specifically how the arts can improve mental health.
Yeah, and we see it every day and we hear about it every day, but there's not a lot of academic evidence. So we're working with a couple of organisations just now to see if we can contribute towards some kind of qualitative study that influences policy.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a big one. We haven't done similar work. I see also how it changes people's lives and keeps people away from bad cycles of negative lifestyle and things like that. So it must be saving the state a lot of money, but what's not recognised that organisations like us are actually doing to save the state money, but make people's lives improve the quality on a day-to-day basis, and the wider families.
Absolutely, the wider family is something that comes up quite a lot and it's not a short process. It's looking at the long-term impact, but also the long-term commitment. There's IRIS, which is Institute for Research and Innovation in Social Care. Our social services are currently doing a case study on the work that we do. And we've had really good sort of consultation with practice nurses and mental health support specialists and with the groups themselves. So there's very high percentages of people coming through saying this is life-changing, people either saying it's eradicated or minimalised suicidal thoughts. There's quite a sort of unexpected outcomes from it that we knew that it made people feel better, but we didn't realise the sort of wider impact. So that report should be finished sort of the end of April.
I'm not really asking about this question, but just as we're speaking here, do you think on a policy level that should be acknowledged more, that they don't actually kind of sit and look at these kind of things and go, look at the social value of this work that's going on, and they should be built into policy a bit more, that there should be some kind of recognition or way of measuring the impact?
Yeah, I do think so. That's what you're saying, actually getting evidence and telling people. But yeah, it should be incorporated into policy. Sometimes I think that arts are seen as a luxury. So when the funding gets cut, and I know it's happened in England a lot, the arts budgets have been slashed, but they haven't taken into account, it's the same when they slash the youth budgets, a rise in antisocial behaviour, so they haven't really saved any money by cutting that. If anything, they've cost themselves money. So joined up thinking, I think.
I think
it's holistic. We're not saying that it fixes all society's problems, but it's part of a holistic approach, I think.
For instance, one of the consultations we did, they talked about talking therapy, and the actual doing like a creative artistic, participating in something creative can make people open up and not look at the bad self and internalise, but to actually do something and learn a skill and start to share and empathise and feel much better. So we're starting to gather evidence of people saying that the arts specifically help with the mental health the same way as physical activity does. But the Bearing Foundation have been doing quite a lot of studies into creativity in older age, and very interesting reports and studies have come out from that. So we base a lot of our work with the seniors groups around that. We had funding from the Bearing Foundation for a couple of years, and we always sort of analyse the work, evaluate it and monitor it, and you can definitely see that there's an impact.
Yeah.
So.
From an employability point of view as well, the arts and creative industries are huge in Scotland, and potentially growing. So we're looking out for new broadcast opportunities. We're keeping our eye on how the digital communications are going, and so there's lots of opportunities there as well to be explored. Crystal ball. Well, I think we're really going to have to. Like we were saying, as a small organisation, you can shift and be resilient. You can change with the times or adapt to the times. And I think we're just going to have to kind of keep our eye on. Nobody knows really what's going to happen in 2015. Everybody we're speaking to seems to be saying they're funding up till 2015. Nobody knows what's happening after that.
That's a strange question anyway, because something could change in September.
Yeah.
That's back to square one or whatever.
I know. I think the definite. There'll be a move forward on trying to get people to work effectively together. Put partners together that are kind of quite natural partners, but also bring something of value to the table. I think that people are realising that there's not so much of a kind of a project approach now. It's much more of a programmed approach of people linking up better.
Some of the parts might be greater actually.
Absolutely. But also, I think over the next couple of years, small organisations need to look at opportunities for service level agreements and see if there's evidence of the work that they do, how it does complement other services. It's very hard as such a small organisation to do that, but I think that'd be, the way forward as well.
My name is Isabel Harland, and I am the project manager at Govan and Craigton Integration Network. Well, Govan and Craigton Integration Network came about really in 2000-2001 when Glasgow became a dispersal city, which means basically that many people who were seeking asylum were being dispersed to different cities in the UK, with Glasgow being the main one in Scotland. So ourselves and various other integration networks across the city came about really as a response to many newcomers to certain areas of Glasgow, and really I guess the main purposes are they were back then and to this day to help make people feel welcome to these areas, and also to mitigate the possible or potential outcomes, if you like, of quite large numbers of people seeking refuge coming to certain areas such as Govan, which really are to do with integrating new people into the community, but also we've always seen it as going both ways. So not just really helping people feel part of the community, but also the existing community feel that they understand or better get involved with those coming to the area. So where our main priority was to work with asylum seekers and refugees. Now increasingly we see it as really working with all members of Govan's communities, and also because Govan's got quite a large migrant community from Poland, for instance, which obviously they deal with different kind of barriers and circumstances than asylum seekers and refugees would. So yes, our main purpose is that of integration, but also we carry out a lot of activities and support services, if you like, for people on the one hand who are still going through the asylum system, and which is not it's not an easy system to navigate, and people face many barriers in those circumstances. But even then, also people who gain refugee status, which means that they are then able to work, or they have a right to work and a right to claim benefits, for instance. They face a whole new array of barriers in terms of finding work, accessing employment, and also navigating the benefit system with welfare reform as well in the past year. So we've seen a real increasing need for people to try and work out how best to build their CV, gain experience, apply for jobs, search for jobs, etc. So a lot of our services involve supporting people through that as well. We also are part of a Glasgow-wide network which aims to support and provide services for people who are in the asylum system and who've been refused asylum and are consequently made destitute. And we, particularly here at Govan Creative Integration Network, provide a food parcel and bus pass service for people in that situation. But we've also, given the economic situation and welfare reform, there's a lot of people who are, I guess, Indigenous Scots who are coming to us for those same services because until very recently there wasn't any other food banks in the area. So those are our main services, and then we also carry out, as I mentioned, a number of activities really to on the one hand help people build their skills, and also for, I guess, increase mental health and well-being, but also to kind of create better intercultural understanding and promote integration. So we've run various projects, and we're currently also running various projects, but in the past have included around themes such as heritage, and also arts and crafts and media skills, and we often do that with partner organisations. Okay.
It's a real lifeline though, is it, for a lot of people to arrive on the doorstep in the recession into a community that's already struggling. I'm sure people say, well, we're struggling too here, and how do you deal with stuff like that?
Well, we try and see ourselves as well as a forum, so that we try as much as possible to not just work with network member organisations, but also partner organisations in the area, to try and see how we together can respond to this kind of need and these requests. And I think a lot of that is done through, on the one hand, the activities and projects I mentioned, but also through our drop-ins, which really is the main space and time where we provide a lot of our services and activities. And by having open drop-ins, then that's a chance that anyone really can come along and not just have a cup of tea or a meal and meet others and chat to others, but also access staff and volunteers to be able to give some initial advice. A lot of what we do is signposting as well, so through our network and through our partnerships with other organisations, we're able to signpost people to more specialist advice services and rights organisations.
And I seen your Diving for Pearls project, where a lot of the people who have moved into the community were actually working hands-on in projects with other community groups. Yeah. And then they put on this really wonderful event at the end where they were sharing their stories and working with the work they'd done together. I think that was a really good project. Yeah, no, I think it's been one of our most successful, and it's made a huge difference to bringing people together in the community, so overcoming those kind of barriers where there are many misunderstandings about, for instance, what the asylum system actually entails, and also, I guess, fear of the other as well. There is this thing of when you do have new people from very different parts of the world, different languages, and there's a bit of a fear of, well, why are they here, what are they doing here? And it's only through activities where people actually just come together and work together, as you mentioned, or create together, that those fears are overcome or sort of demystified or something. Well, our main resource, I guess, for sustainability is that we, for the past 2.5 years now, have been running a social enterprise, which is a translating and interpreting agency which aims to make
interpreting and translating services affordable to third sector organisations in particular. But we also have clients among public bodies and some few private companies as well. And I guess the main thing is that any income generated through the social enterprise is then able to be kept as free reserves or income that we can use to reinvest into our community work. So that has been that's made a big difference. It just gives us that little cushion to make sure that if we don't manage to get sufficient grants from different trusts and foundations, that we can still continue the work we do. We also have strong links with the local housing associations, and one in particular is that Glasgow Housing Association has provided us with a free use of a community flat in Cardonald specifically. We are currently looking for new premises because unfortunately the buildings where that flat is currently are being torn down in the summer. But it looks like that's going to be quite straightforward. At best we'll be key holders of a new property, and at worst we would still have the services that we provide there. We have a number of particularly church halls that would be willing for us to continue the classes, the drop-ins and the workshops that we have at the community flat. So I guess the main thing is that we've managed to build on the one hand the social enterprise to generate that income to make sure that we can carry on into the future, and on the other we've made strong links with local statutory and third sector organisations such that we can I guess we can pull a lot of in-kind resources and help to make sure that we can carry on with our services and activities. Both Govan Housing Association and Elder Park Housing Association are member organisations of our network. So we have kind of regular communication with them. There's a lot of cross-referral going on. And for instance, Govan Housing Association recently have rented us a plot in their community allotments. So we're just currently now gathering a group of people together who are going to be working to grow vegetables on the allotment. And I guess also they promote a lot of our work and our services through their own networks and through their newsletters and things. And if they have, for instance, Elder Park Housing Association has a regular health eating and cookery workshop that many of our service users will access as well. And yeah, that's I guess the main ways. Well, I guess a big barrier is a similar one that I think many other charities, small charities face, which is an increasing more competitiveness, if you like, in gaining funds from grant-giving organisations. So that is becoming more and more difficult. And although, as I mentioned, we do have a social enterprise that generates income, it still is not at a stage and will likely never be at a stage that we can be fully reliant on that for our income. So I guess that's a particular pertinent barrier, if you like, for future development, in that it's getting harder and harder to secure funds. We do have some funds from Glasgow City Council integrated grants budget to carry out our work, but that was cut drastically by half 2 years ago, and it's likely to, year on year it's been cut a little bit more given the current economic climate. So yes, I think funds is a big barrier. Another one I think is, well, to some extent it could be seen as a barrier but also as a future opportunity in a sense, and that's that according to information that we have from quite reliable sources, Govan already, and it's looking like in the future more so, is receiving quite a large proportion of asylum seekers who are being dispersed to Glasgow. I think as it stands currently it's about approximately 20% of all asylum seekers dispersed to Glasgow are housed within the G51 postcode area. I say this as a barrier and opportunity because on the one hand it's an opportunity for us to really develop our work and to really provide a much better and efficient service to folk coming to the area, and to be working with more folk in those circumstances. But a barrier in that we foresee that there will be possibly some resistance to this among the local community, but hopefully not. I mean, we have seen, and really it's been interesting to hear through our service users when we've interviewed them or spoken to them, I guess informally, in this past year, especially through the Diamond for Pearls project, which was an oral history project, that they have noticed a difference, those who have been living here for a number of years, among people's reception of migrants, if you like, to the area. They have felt that they feel more welcome and more safe than they did maybe 10 years ago, which is something that's really positive, and we hope that or the work we've done has had something to do with that. But either way, it's a good news. So I hope that, as I say, that despite greater numbers being housed in the local area, that this won't be met with too much resistance.
Recession and other European government policies are about people movement of people things. Do you think your projects like your own and other ones in the network are left to pick up a lot of slack, but without having this necessary support?
Yes, definitely. I think, and I think it's a similar story in around many other kind of issues and community issues. I do feel that more and more it's small organisations such as yourselves that are picking up a lot of the fallout, if you like, of changes such as a large one was a couple of years ago, more than a couple of years ago. Glasgow City Council used to be the ones providing asylum accommodation, and then that was their contract. They lost a contract with the Home Office to provide that, and it was given to, first of all, another charity and a private company, but in the past, well, 2 years ago now, it was given to a multinational company called Cepok, who in turn subcontracted this to a private letting agency called Orchard and Shipman, and so they really, it's not in their interests, and it's not part of their protocol to really provide much support and more integration activities, if you like. So whereas maybe Glasgow City Council was a lot more sympathetic and perhaps did provide other services as well through their budget, that now doesn't exist. So I think that another change that's coming as well is that the Scottish Refugee Council until March this year had the initial advice services for people being dispersed to Glasgow, and they've now lost that contract to another charity that's never worked in Scotland before, and in their work in England has always been over the phone. So that kind of face-to-face support, that face-to-face advice, which really is crucial for people new to the area, especially given the amount of language and cultural barriers that they face, is now a significant organisation that provided that face-to-face advice and support now no longer has that. So we're actually expecting a greater fallout, if you like, from that, where we're going to have to sort of pick up that support and advice to people in that situation.
Where your incentive is to provide a service, organisations like one of the ones you just described, their incentive is profit-making thing, so if you bring that into the equation, the whole thing changes basically.
Yeah, absolutely. The priorities change, the interest changes as well. I mean, yeah, there was talk of how the Home Office obviously subcontracts these kinds of services and provisions to different companies, be they not-for-profit or for-profit. And obviously dynamic changes greatly whether if they're one or the other, but I guess the difference as well now with obviously Scottish Refugee Council is a not-for-profit organisation, but even then there's always a certain constraint, I think, that is created when your funder is the government and it has certain interests. Well, I think the referendum is a huge one, because if if it turns out that there's a majority yes vote and Scotland does become an independent independent country, it will likely have quite a huge impact actually on many of the people we work with, if not all actually, but especially talking about refugees and asylum seekers. What the Scottish Government are currently proposing that they would have in an independent Scotland is a much more sympathetic, independent, i.e. independent of the government, and I guess fairer and just asylum system in Scotland, and that would undoubtedly have a huge impact. Whether that actually happens is another question, but I think everyone in this organisation sector agrees that it seems like the Scottish Government is a lot more understanding and welcoming of newcomers to Scotland, of migrant populations, and they have promised and put in paper through in writing through the white paper that they would allow asylum seekers to work, which is a major thing. They would also have an independent organisation that would assess claims for asylum, and they would also end child detention, dawn raids, and really they're even proposing that they would not have detention centres. They would get rid of Dungavel. So that would be a huge impact. And I think even if Scotland does not become independent, I think it's opened up the debate a lot. So I like to be hopeful in thinking that at least a lot of issues which were previously very hidden issues are now coming to light, and that in the future, in the next 2 years, that regardless of the outcome of the referendum, that these issues will be much more at the forefront of public debate, and I think that's always a good thing.
I think on a day-to-day basis, GALGAL are about creating practical projects that create work and meaning for people. I think we're about pushing boundaries as to how we understand the issues confronting our communities. I think a lot of the time there's a kind of a bit of a focus around fixing broken people, and I think we're saying we think that that's not the problem. The problem is fixing a broken society. And so I think what we're doing is reworking society through involving people in hands-on activities that have a real outcome, a real output. If you visited GALGAL and you took a walk around the workshop, what you'd see is a lot of people at workbenches. Some of the folks are working on our range of craft products, which can be chopping boards or little kists, little boxes for keepsake items. Some other people are learning a bit of boat building. At the moment we're building a pram dinghy out in the workshop. Other people might be helping the makers on furniture projects or working on other bespoke orders from people, which might be anything from a kitchen table to a garden bench. If you went out into the yard, you'd come across people that are chopping firewood, because one of the other things that we do is firewood production, alongside producing timber for furniture making itself.
So it's got a community aspect to it, it's got the side to it that helps people build on their personal skills and capacities, but it's got a social business side as well.
That's right, yeah. And our way of working is trying to create conditions where people can build on their own self-reliance at the same time as contributing to the self-reliance of the organisation itself through our social enterprise activities. And I think that the big benefit through that is in the mutuality. It's not that we're here to help people. We're certainly not here to fix people. It's about creating context of meaning and value for the skills and experience that is in our community already, and working with that in a mutually beneficial way. I think that beyond what we do in the building itself and the environment we create is as important. And I think that involves creating a context where people feel respected, and we look at it as that we simply provide people a workplace, some tools and a bit of respect, and let people get on with it themselves. Alongside that is sitting down and eating a bowl of soup together at lunchtime, and then the opportunities for people to engage with the organisation on a number of different levels, through Thursday evening gatherings around sharing skills and food and music, through to the sort of day-to-day kind of busyness of the normal working week. But I think that the sort of workplace itself, we hope, is inspiring for people, and gives people an opportunity to sort of forge new identities. I think a lot of work there's a strong self-labelling that goes on with issue-based work, which people can leave at the door at Gallatown and forge a new identity. I think also creating a workplace where people make things that are beautiful but also make mistakes is really important, and creating a culture for making mistakes and working with those, and the lessons that come with that is also a really important part of what we do. I think the whole issue of sustainability has been a really tough one for Gallatown. We lost a primary source of income a couple of years ago, and I think we're still kind of trying to find some stability after that. One of the ways we've tried to do that is by engaging more in social enterprise activities, and I think there's some interesting opportunities to explore sort of mutual benefits between the organisation and the individuals we work with that could come through that, but we're not there yet. I think that it's a challenging environment to get the enterprise things working. We're also finding that the fundraising is much tougher, and we're seeing a lot more effort going out to bring in small amounts of money, so it's not very efficient means of generating income, and certainly doesn't contribute greatly to the sustainability of the organisation. So we're trying to explore different ways of understanding our situation, and are there other ways we can put things together in ways that make put the organisation on a stronger footing. Gallatown try and be as outward looking as we can when it comes to partnerships. I think we recognise that all the people we work with are involved with at least 2 or 3 other organisations, and we're keen to play to our strengths, and that means working in partnership with the other local organisations that are out there, but also further afield. At the moment we're exploring work with other wood-based social enterprises like the Coach House Trust and Glasgow Wood Recycling. We're also looking at doing some more work with the toll ship on the other side of the river to sort of create that kind of north bank, south bank kind of link up around the boat building and maritime heritage. And we've also done work in the past with other Govan organisations under the banner of the Govan Folk University, and we're really keen to kind of pick that up again at some point and take that to its full potential, because I think there's more ground there that we could explore in relation to how education serves our communities, and acknowledges the value of the kind of kitchen table learning that takes place in an area like Govan. I think we're starting to realise what the opportunities might be now that we've kind of got a better sense of self as an organisation. I think the fact that more people out there are interested in exploring different ways of working. I think we've been saying for a while we don't want to be a sticking plaster, we don't want to be a part of the revolving door. And I think that more and more when I've been going out and about, I've been saying we don't turn people's lives around, because I think that sometimes people want to hear that story. And I think that people need to start hearing the reality that as soon as people leave that front door, we have no control over what influences they're exposed to. If people are going straight back to the same housing issues, the same neighbourhood issues, then their lives aren't going to change, and nothing that we can do or any other organisation can do is going to stop us being anything other than a revolving door. So I think that, sometimes a bit of a reality check, saying that we are part of the revolving door for people. And we don't turn people's lives around. We can make them materially a bit better for a while they're in the building, But there's a wider issue at play here, which is about structural change and societal change, and what we can learn from the work we're doing in here that we can take out into the wider world about how we can start tackling things at that level, rather than coming at it from the perspective of that individuals are broken and somehow need fixed, which I think is kind of a slightly flawed way of looking at things.
That is an opportunity though to recognise that and see how you can work with that and take that kind of message out. That, I mean, for me, Gallatown is a place where you challenge people's minds. They think they can only do this and they can only do that, and they come in here and suddenly they realise they can do a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah.
Plus we change around very quickly. I've said a couple of times the preconception that people are unemployable, don't want to work.
That's it.
We know for a fact in the right circumstances
they
love to work.
Yeah.
And there was another thing, I can't remember what it was, but I'll probably edit some of that later. What would you say, I mean, that's some of the opportunities you're seeing. What would you say are barriers that would, is it something, is it out there in the political world, economic world, society?
I'm not seeing so many political barriers anymore, because I think, I mean, you always have a fear that if you say the wrong thing, you'll disadvantage yourself in some way, disadvantage the organisation in some way. But I think the fact that people are realising that certain old approaches aren't working anymore means that I'm not so worried about the political barriers, because I think, you know, people do need different answers, and to get different answers you need to be asking different questions. I think the barrier comes from maybe the mindset and the cultural approaches keeping us stuck where we are. As professionals even, you know, seeing ourselves as potential barriers. You know, not feeding a culture of dependency, but in creating the conditions where people can explore their you know, their opportunity for self-reliance, and explore the skills and capacities required for that. I think the barriers are also tied up in the mechanics of the old ways of working. So the fundraising, the funding, report writing, tick boxing, measuring kind of culture is so time consuming, and a lot of my time, in fact the vast majority of my time, goes in that area, and I don't think that's you know, across our organisation, the way in which our time is used in that way. And if you take it beyond our organisation to the other organisations locally and nationally, that's a huge waste of time actually, because what we're talking about is you know, sort of a fairly mechanistic way of understanding what is going on and the difference that we are making, and the ways in which the sort of social benefits or the health outcomes of what we're doing are unfolding. I think that's a not value for money in my understanding, and I think what we're talking about is some kind of paper-based way of replacing trust, and I think we need to explore how we get back to a position where local authority, you know, the kind of Christie report stuff, start trusting local communities to want to and to know what to do to improve their communities, and trusting the organisations that serve those communities to be wanting to serve them to the best of their ability. And I think that we'll free up so much energy if we can make that shift in mindset.
I totally agree with what you say about trust there, and it kind of harks back to one of the earlier questions about resources. I mean, people like yourself are an immense resource to your project. You're tied up a lot of the time, as are many other projects we've spoken to. You can't bring people's skills to the code work when they're actually just helping the project to survive in this present climate.
Absolutely, Tam. I mean, I think that so much of our time is just caught in survival, in standing still, whereas we know that we've got this huge potential to continue to push boundaries in terms of how re-envisioning, reworking society in ways that don't create the kind of problems that we're having to deal with on a day-to-day basis. I suppose the biggest fear is probably fear itself. I think that fear starts to shut down possibilities and opportunities. Beyond that, then there is the sort of, you know, realistic answer about there not being enough money to keep going. That's always a fear. But in terms of my hopes for the next couple of years, I think that there's been a lot of work that we've put into sort of creating more possibility, generating potential, and I still think we're kind of potential more than we are realised potential. So my hopes would be that we get to unfold that and we explore the art of what's possible through our models of and ways of working.
I'm the chairman of the Govan Fair. I'm the chairman of the Fairground Community Group, and I'm the chairman of Heads Up Govan Police Committee. The Govan Fair is 258 years old this year. I was privileged by being unanimously voted on as chairperson, and then I seen what was in the bank. I didn't want the chair after. 6 weeks to go we had £73 to run an event of several thousand. So I got in touch with Andrew McAvoy, who's an architect, and Liz Gardner, Fable Vision, and a few other people, Dr. Cheer and a few other people. Frank Miller from River City, and we all got together. I says, look, I've helped you in the past, I need your help now. And the Gallatown. And they helped. They done everything for practically nothing. Couldn't pay them the hours they worked. And these people saved the Govan Fair. Not me, I'm only the chairman. They done it. And the Govan Fair was saved. Now the council has woke up. We have 3 councillors at several meetings that we've had determined to support their heritage, as I tell them. We're also involved in the Friends of Elder Park, which we need. The park's got to be the heart of Govan, because Govan's the heart of Glasgow, as you know. And we're trying to get the bandstand with the help of Fable Vision and Liz Gardner and the Gallatown to get the park up to what it used to be as a centre point in Govan. The show people that's in Scotland, 90% of them, came from Govan and was either evicted off a site or shifted or went over to Shettleston or Partick or wherever. But they mainly all came from Govan. And Govan is the heart of the show people's community. And Govan Old, there was 3,000 marriages there of show people. We wanted, there's 2 sites there, 2 caravan sites for show people. We want to build a museum next to the site, so it will secure the sites and it'll give us a footholding. And the museum won't belong to me, it won't belong to you, it will belong to the show people and their heritage. That's what it'll belong to, and it'll be for them to decide, and the future children to decide what they want in it. The resources that keeps us going is the people. When you go through Govan Fair when it's on, and you see the public, and you see them kids' faces, and we create this. And the Govan Fair, I mean, there was Kenny Kerr last night. Kenny Kerr's been on there since before he was born. And Dorothy Courtney, I mean, that's women's done years and years. It's made the 2 of them ill. And I'm quite determined as a chairperson now not to make that happen again, because it's not a tool for making people ill, it's a tool to make people happy. And this is what we do, try and make people happy. Showmen. That's what we are. That there's a stigma against show people for some reason or another, I don't know why. Not in France, Holland, Belgium and Germany and different other countries, not in Italy and that. They love the show people, they treat like normal human beings. We seem to be lacking that in this country. The show people We done the activities for the last 12 years free of charge to the public, and the burden of finance fell on my family, immediate family, and my relations. We just put money in a pot, the Fairground Community Group, and give it to the public, free candy floss, free this, free dodgems, free that, free the next thing. And the people appreciated it. We're dealing with the Showman's Guild now, because we want to get, I got more professionals in to do a more refined job, and we want the Govan Fair to be a footprint of what it used to be. Govan was a big place, you know, Partick, Govan Hill, blah, blah, blah. It was a big, big area of Glasgow. Glasgow should have been called Govan, but you know what happened with the politics. Partick voted against it. They got the museum. Who cares? We'll get something else. We want a museum in Govan, and it helps the people to go somewhere else, and they come to the Govan Old Parish and they see the stones, and they come and visit the PI in different places. And there's walks that's done, the Govan Nature Trails with Tara Bell. She started that, a fantastic thing, around the docks and all over the place, into the police station here, and showing you the past of Govan. And this was all created by us, by Govan Fairways. We got a grant of £68,000. I was the client, the Fairground Community Group, and Tara Bell, Liz Gardner, Andrew McAvoy and others got this project put together, because it was like them over there at Partick and us over here at Govan. Now, the museum is involved last year with the Govan Fair, and they're more now looking to Govan and what it's got and what it's got to give and what they can do for us. And it's a partnership now with them, and there's national bodies coming in. We're going to have some maybe national orchestra or something playing in the park in Govan, Elder Park. We hope. We hope. There'll be some shows going on first, plays and things, and then we'll get this bandstand done. Well, the barriers, I can tell you, the barriers is that we've been on that site. I've personally been on that site for over 30 years, and we got a lease for a year, and it was to get renewed, and we never got a renewal on the lease. And we got 7 eviction notices, and Sheriff Russell threw the thing out, told the council to get lost. And we've had Hamza Yusuf on it, and we've had other people on it, and we're still there. They said I never paid the rent or proper rent, and I says, well, it's difficult to pay rent when you haven't got a lease. And that to me is, I'm not going to say it on camera, but to me, if I'd done that, I would be into trouble. Yeah. I would be in trouble. But if they do it, it's all right, but we're trying to get a resolvement to this situation. Yeah. We want to stay there. We're entitled to be there like everybody else, and they are recognising that. As I told you, I'm the chair of Heads Up Govan Police, and we got £9,000 from the police fund, or whatever it's called. And I had the police hit me 52 times in 3 months. A CID 16 times. The Royal Society for Cruelty to Animals, or whatever they call it, 12 times. Every one of them was a waste of time, but it's got to happen. Mm-hmm. People's got to be answered if they've got complaints about something. But when the complaints is created and there's people put somewhere to complain, I can't handle that, I'm only an ordinary showman. I'm not an academic or anything, but I'm not stupid. And this is what's happening with them. They think we're the bee's knees, we're the councillors, we're this, we're that. And by the way, the fathers of Glasgow Council has always been friendly and good towards the show people. Any showman will tell you that. But when it comes to the administrators, I don't know what's wrong with them. I don't know. And as the man says to me, is this ignorance, Jimmy, that these people treating you like this? Well, you've seen it. I says, how can it be ignorance when the people that's doing it to us is educated?
My name's Nadia Rossi. I've got a studio upstairs here at Gunning Park. I'm an artist and I'm also on the board and I work in the office here.
Well, my name's Lindsay Keenan. I work here as the building manager, kind of part-time building manager, and I'm on the board. So we manage and run and improve the community centre here at 43 Cornwall Street. Old school building, 2 halls, 14 classrooms. Some of the classrooms we use as studios, some as multi-function community offices, and the halls which are used for everything. Yeah. We kind of put our categories as arts, sports, culture and community development. So there's all sorts of music classes, dance classes, theatre companies, art events, cultural
maybe a bit
events.
of education there as well, it's all those things, yeah.
Yeah, and you guys did the summer club for kids.
Yep, so we're trying to have more activities for local families and community as well, so yeah, trying to do in-house projects more, so we hosted a kids project in the summer last year and we're hoping to keep that going over the next few years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then mainly the last few years we've focused on just keeping the building open. So raising the money to pay the rent and the maintenance and the repairs and the costs are running it. And in last year and the next few years we're hoping to programme more things ourselves. But we've also been very lucky because there's so many people come here and do things. So we've got a lot of class organisers and event organisers, and it's quite amazing how many people in the community want a hall for something, whether it's a wedding, a pre-wedding event, a family birthday, film screenings, all manner of fun things.
Mm.
And then you were saying...
Yeah. I think this is the only hall space in this area. There used to be the Lawrence Street Hall, is that the name of it?
Yeah, pretty much.
But maybe we're the only one that's left, and yeah, obviously independent, not council run, so kind of working from bottom up and trying to work out what we need, what the community needs, how to identify those needs and then respond to them.
Well, the good thing is we're self-sustaining, actually. We are self-financing. Yeah. Everything's very tight, everything's on a complete shoestring, but we raise, through the use of the halls and our own fundraising events, we raise enough to have a couple of part-time staff covering about 40 odd, nearly 50 hours a week. It's not quite enough, you really need about 2 full-time equivalents, so we're juggling quite a lot. But we've got a number of people act as part-time staff, cleaners, caretakers. A lot of them are involved with the building or are building users anyway, and we have a team of volunteers that help, some people that help us in the office, and lots of people from different groups and users of the building that will come in and help us. For example, when we painted this hall in January, or we're doing other renovations or fixing the garden. So some staff, some volunteers. Bulk of stuff self-funding, so we're sustainable. Our big problem is the £500,000 or whatever rough estimate of major repairs that needed done before the community ever took over the running of the building back in 1996. Those repairs were never done by the council and they're refusing to do them. So if they're going to get done, it's going to be us that finds the time and the money and the resources to make that happen, but that's obviously quite a big challenge.
Yeah, we're pretty much maximum capacity in terms of the hall use. All the studios are fully booked, we have a massive waiting list, and our hall use is often totally booked up as well, so yeah, there's a need for it.
The need for it is
absolutely.
Well, I think there is that thing when people have to walk through waterfalls and under tarpaulins and over buckets dripping water to use their local community centre, it's because they want to use it.
I suppose at the moment, just directly, we've got our class organisers, so we've got maybe about 10 to 20 folk that use the building regularly for classes, and event organisers as well. And then we've got like tenants as well in the building, and I guess folk from the local, slightly wider communities as well, but we're hoping to kind of expand that as we start the next part of what we're planning, which is kind of development over the next year or two, sort of development programme, and trying to build up that supporters network.
And there are some community organisations locally, so the likes of Exchange Scotland, one of the fellows from there has recently joined our board, with good connections, the likes of Plantation Productions down in Govan, who actually grew out of this building originally. And there's a couple of other community groups. We have some contact also with some of the council departments, but we're still kind of working out that relationship. And I think there's a lot other, whether it's the lottery or other funders, that's part of the development that we need to do a bit more of. We have some contact there, but most of our partnership working has come from community up. So it's been the Aikido class, it's been the Taekwondo class, the dance class, the events organisers, the people that are coming to us. That's who we're working with, mainly in the community. There's certainly space for statutory agencies and funders to partner us and get involved. We have it happening. Indeed, we could do with that kind of support. Yes, so opportunities and barriers for development. We put in a few things that can be both. So the first was the lease or community ownership of the building in order for us to get the funding to get the major repairs done. We've been here, the community's been paying the bill since 1996, but that was initially on a 1 month and then a 1 year lease. We've had to renegotiate that lease recently with Glasgow City Council City Properties, but it's clear we need either a very long lease, in the meantime we're signing a short-term lease again, we need a long lease, or we need probably community ownership of the building. So those are discussions. If we have, for example, community ownership of the building, then it's easier to find the funding, and it gives the community a reason to do the work and to invest. And who knows, I think that's the right thing, and if it's the right thing I'm sure that it will happen. There's some maybe a community empowerment bill and other things going on. Let's see if any of them come to fruition and deliver for us. Funding is obviously another question. As I said, we are self-funding, but we will need to find the money to get the major repairs done. Once you get the major repairs done and we're not chasing rainwater dripping in all of the time, then the management costs and the community use of the building, because it starts to look better, should all work a little better, should lower our costs and increase the amount of time that we have available. And then I've put down community building, and by that I mean us working more with and integrating more the many people that are using the building. In the last 2 years, since we've really opened the doors up again, got it back to health and safety standards and said to people come and use it, the community use of the building has gone through the roof. Yeah. What we've now to do is build all of those people into a community, whether it's part of a membership or a voting membership, or just that there's a better programme of events and people are going to each other's programme of events, and just to see how we can...
I suppose just see how we can get to its full potential as well, push it to build these projects up, bring groups together, start try and find funding to pair people up that are doing things and support each other.
Yeah, because I think we're quite lucky. We're at the centre of the wheel here sometimes, and you see how many good people are doing good things in the community. But bringing that together and taking it out to the rest of the community around the building, and hopefully having a positive effect on the social and health and other realities in the areas of mental deprivation.
I suppose we want to just develop our community, expand it, sort of have a clearer vision of maybe where we're going, what's needed in the community, try and get those funds that we need to secure these projects.
Yeah, and in terms of the funding, it very much is get the roof fixed, get the floors in both halls fixed, and start to get some of the classrooms and studios fixed. I mean, you've seen some of the holes in the roof and the water coming in and the state of the floor that we're in here. The building's been very well used and more sustainable despite those things. If we can just get those things nailed or in the process.
I mean, it's basic things we need to do, but we need to find the support for to do great things once we have those things in place. So. Yeah.
These interviews demonstrate the broad similarity of experience across these different communities. Projects may be set up to produce defined outcomes, but their broader beneficial impact may be harder to measure, especially in terms of increased social interaction and longer-term improvements in individual and community health and well-being. People living in Kirkcaldy and Govan have valuable experiences and views which they want to share. Generally, they're asking for more control over the resources, decisions and policies which impact on their lives. That broad aspiration is increasingly shared across national and local government and key agencies. Some of those players are more progressive than others in setting up ways and means of achieving shared aims. Above all, everyone expresses concern about the sustainability of what they do. Short-term, limited and competitive funding forces them to focus on short-term goals and reduces scope for collaboration. They can see further horizons, but they are not confident they will have the resources to set out towards them. SURF intends to refilm these projects in 2015 as part of its work in sharing understanding of community-based regeneration and of improving policy and practice across Scotland.